Starting us off at number 10 is an alien invasion. So if the seers of our world are to be believed, then 2023 is in store for some pretty wild stuff. In fact, according to the famous blind seer Baba Vanga, it's not just typical human wars that we should be worried about this year, but the invasion of an evil alien species as well. Now, there are many different conspiracy theories surrounding the existence of aliens to begin with. Among believers, some think they are harmless, while others think they are dangerous, and there's even a third sort of faction that suggests there is obviously more than one race of aliens, so both dangerous and peaceful could exist in our universe. Putting aside the theories surrounding if aliens are dangerous or not, according to Baba Vanga, this year we will be invaded by a race of bloodthirsty monsters that will tragically result in the end of humankind. If that's all true, it would mean that 2023 would be the last year that we all have here, as again, she predicts that aliens will wipe out the human race and take over planet Earth. I mean, there's very little I can use to verify the validity of this statement, but you can sure hope I'm praying it's not true, cause well, I don't want to die. All that being said, if the conspiracy of alien existence is true, would the government know about their impending arrival and be preparing for such a disaster? I mean, I just have some questions. Let's hope this one misses the mark and does not come true. Next up at number 9 is a major cosmic event. Another modern-day self-proclaimed seer had something to add to the 2023 prediction list. Craig Hamilton Parker, a British seer who has been nicknamed the Prophet of Doom, says he had a vision of a major cosmic event that will take place in our solar system sometime during the year 2023. Quote, "I have a feeling of something like a very huge solar flare, and I feel this would be significant, whether that reaches the Earth or whether it affects all of our technology or something like that." He then went on to clarify, quote, "I can't explain exactly what it is, you know, I can't see everything, I see parts of things, I get feelings of things." Of course, he isn't the only prophet to foresee some kind of solar problem causing technological breakdown in the year 2023. In fact, Baba Vanga had a similar foresight. I guess that makes me wonder, does two people with similar visions indicate it's super strong prediction, or does it make it less plausible? I have no idea. I'm just thinking out loud. Let's just hope that nothing world-ending actually comes true. Next up at number 8 is the Antichrist. Among the many other foresights predicted for the year of 2023, one I did not have on my bingo card is the return of the Antichrist. Well, according to Athos Salome, a modern psychic who some are even calling the living Nostradamus, says he has seen that the year 2023 will bring forth, quote, "beginning of the end," and that the Antichrist will rise once more. Athos specified that he had a vision prior to the new year that showed the enemy of the Messiah wreaking havoc on Earth between 2023 to 2026, and that we're in store for some dark evil in the next 3 years. He goes on to explain that the Antichrist is not necessarily just one person, but rather an entity with an ability to pervade into multiple people or places. Truthfully, this is one of the more vague predictions on the list. He doesn't go into much detail about where it come from, just that it, quote, "won't come from Europe, contrary to popular belief." I was unaware that was the common belief up until this point. I guess my biggest question is, how will we know what is the work of the Antichrist? Listen, I'm not saying he's lying, I'm just saying I have some follow-up questions. Also, I just really hope it's not true, cause I'm not too keen on the Antichrist roaming the planet for the next 3 years. It's been dark enough lately, I'm not really looking for things to get worse. Coming in at number 7 is a war against the wealthy. If you have been on the internet lately, you've probably come across many people joking about eating the rich. Of course, this doesn't refer to physically doing so, at least I hope it doesn't, but rather the lower class wanting to take down the ludicrously rich and powerful. This isn't anything new, there have been many revolutions throughout history that involved plebeians storming the gates of kings and overthrowing their rule. Remember the French Revolution? Well, according to everyone's famous psychic Nostradamus, the year 2023 could bring forward another revolution of the sorts. As he predicts, quote, "sooner than later you will see great changes made, dreadful horrors and vengeance. The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven, the bloody mouth will swim with blood, the face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground." There are definitely a few factors that make this kind of believable. I mean, we're dealing with a huge cost of living crisis, climate crisis, mental health crisis, and an uptick in people living without homes. And I think overall, there are a lot of people looking for a new way of formulating the world we live in. That being said, a full-on revolution involving war and people's lives should not be taken lightly, and would absolutely be a very scary reality if it did really come true. Next up at number 6 is Rise of the Robots. Feels like every time I turn around, technology is becoming more and more advanced. In a lot of ways, this is helpful, for sure. But at the same time, I have seen far too many movies where robots take over the world, so I always get a little freaked out once I see AI involved in any kind of powerful capacity. Like, has anyone else seen that robot that was created by the Atlas team at Boston Dynamics that can literally do parkour? Like, what if it gets smart enough to change its programming and turn against you? There's no beating a parkour robot. Essentially, the prediction for 2023 is that AI is going to become so enmeshed with our way of living that the need for human input will become virtually extinct. Humans will start losing their jobs to AI, and not just things like the minimum wage jobs where we already have seen a massive rise in machinery taking over. I'm talking like financial advisors or doctors, meaning an AI could be in charge of your financial decisions or even make life or death decisions for you. To me, this just sounds like we're asking for trouble. Robots or AI being in charge of such important things seems to me like a recipe for a dystopian disaster. Call me crazy, but being chased by a parkour robot is just not the fantasy for 2023. Coming in at number 5, Climate Crisis Takeover. Not to get too depressing, but if there was one thing on the list that is actually backed up by the most facts, it would be this one. I mean, we have data showing the rise of sea levels from melting ice caps, the overall average rise in temperatures over the years, rise of greenhouse gases, and so on. I say all of this not to be a buzzkill, but to point out that experts already know our planet is in trouble, and so that just makes Nostradamus' prediction all the more eerie. As the seer put it, quote, "The dry land will dry up even more, and there will be great floods when you see the rainbow." The rainbow refers to another prediction he has made, where he said the world wouldn't see a rainbow for 40 years, or something like that, and so seeing one would be a clue that the impending Earth doom was upon us. Now, the good news is that rainbows have not disappeared in the last 40 years, so if he was wrong on that one, hopefully he's wrong on this one too. Coming in at number 4 is the end of the Vatican. While the Vatican was only declared its own independent state less than 100 years ago, papacy and the Catholic Church date back as far as the 7th century. I mean, I can't really name many things that have existed as a tradition throughout time for that long. However, shockingly, according to the one and only Nostradamus, 2023 might just be the downfall of papacy and the Vatican entirely, which would be wild. Apparently, as it was foretold, in the year 2023, the current pope will resign and he will be the last true pope. His replacement, who will be named Peter, will create or be a part of a scandal that is so shameful to the church and papacy that it will bring down the entire Roman Catholic Church. Quote, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will be Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people." The end. Now, it's no secret that the Vatican has been involved in a few scandals, to put it lightly, many of which would have ended the career of just about anything or anyone else in the world. So what else could they be involved in that would finally be the last straw? I suppose we will just have to wait and see if it comes true or not. Next up at number 3 is the extinction of all fish. Kind of piggybacking on his own prediction of a climate crisis imploding our Earth in the year 2023, Nostradamus also foresees that this year the planet Earth will sadly see the extinction of all fish across the globe. His prediction states, quote, "Like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea. The Black Sea's living fish shall all but boil." Essentially, it sounds like he predicts that due to the increase in temperature, the fish in the sea will cook to death. I mean, not only would that be tragic for obvious reasons, like the extinction of an entire species, but it would also cause a huge issue in regards to global food sources. According to the World Wildlife Foundation, 3 billion people worldwide rely on fish and other seafood as their main source of protein, so the consequences consequences of this would be astronomical. Plus, on a less serious note, the entire planet would smell like dead fish, which I mean, I don't even know how to fathom how rank that would be. Let's just cross our fingers Nostradamus was off with this one. Coming in at number 2, a civil war. So if you remember from part 1 of this series, one of the things Nostradamus predicted was World War III. And apparently this isn't the only conflict that our world might come face to face with this year. If Nostradamus is correct, in 2023, the United States will also be facing another civil war. However, unlike their previous civil war during 1861 to 1865 that fought to end slavery among other tensions of the time, in 2023 it will be a political war between Democrats and Republicans. This prediction first appears in his 1555 novel, and he hasn't been the only seer to predict it. That being said, however, he's probably the most well-known psychic historically, so this foresight is most commonly attached to his name. Nostradamus was not clear on what the exact cause of the 2023 Civil War will be, but he does say that it will last for an extended period of time and that it will be very violent. Honestly, the last thing I want is another war, but there is definitely some tension between political parties in the states, so I mean, who knows. I just hope that whatever comes up can be worked through without bloodshed. And last up today in our number 1 spot is an inflation zombie apocalypse. By the end of this year, inflation is supposed to get so bad that humans will begin eating the flesh of others just to survive. As the 15th century seer put it, quote, "So high will a bushel of wheat rise that man will be eating his fellow man." And I mean, I don't know about you, but with the price of groceries these days, he may be onto something. Okay, but being serious, there actually have been pockets of history where this exact same tragedy happened. The Leningrad famine, for example, was a very dark time with a rise in poverty and an extreme shortage of food, and people were being arrested for eating other humans. It goes without saying that this would be a nightmare, so let's just hope that he had this one wrong, because I'm not looking to make The Walking Dead a reality at any point in time.
Number 10, 15 million merits. Imagine a world where everything you need is earned by pedaling on a bike every day. That's what this episode is about. It literally takes a real world phenomenon and takes it to the most extreme. Anyone else not dig the desk life, the 9 to 5, you know, the pedaling to just get enough money for rent? Yeah, I know what that's like. The people in this dystopian world pedal on bikes to power their building, earn currency to buy food and entertainment. Freemium creates a feedback loop of desire that keeps people just coming back. Now I don't know if this is actually gonna happen. Whether society will entirely reconstruct and become like a uniform bicycling machine with no individualism, but if you think more in a figurative sense, imagine if our entire environment built itself around how much we use our phones. Wait, that might already be happening. Number 9, the national anthem. Rumor has it that this actually kind of happened, but who knows. The national anthem centers around the British Prime Minister who must do an unspeakable act to have hostages released. He must fornicate with a pig on national television. If he doesn't, then he will receive ridicule from the country and cost the hostages their lives. If he does, he will have to live with the horror and everyone knowing forever. I won't spoil what he picked, but this kind of reputational ransom is totally possible and probably just a matter of time. It's also probably happening somewhere behind the scenes. As for this having already happened, that is more or less a rumor that I will not continue to spread unless the truth really comes out. Apparently, no, I'm not gonna do it. But hey, it could happen. Number 8, shut up and dance. Cybersecurity, baby. It's more important now than it ever has been. Anyone can be a target. In the episode Shut Up and Dance, hackers spy on a teen through his webcam and blackmail him through a series of events, and he isn't the only one. It serves as a kind of terrifying PSA that reminds the viewers to be careful what they do online and what they keep online and how accessible it is to people. Check out this YouTube clip.
When she picked up her phone to start recording.
Stop recording the camera, what the f you thinking?
And in the video, you can hear it, them saying, what the F are you doing? Why are you recording us?
That actually happened to a family. Even a home security camera system that cost thousands of dollars was hacked into, and the family started to receive abuse from the attacker through the cameras and through the mics. That's insane. Black Mirror explores what could happen if hackers figure out the kinds of things they can make people do depending on what secrets are being kept. Number 7, hated in the nation. I hope everything in this episode never happens. For one, I don't want bees going anywhere. They're really important. They keep us safe. They keep our food growing. 2, I don't want them to kill anybody if we do come up with a alternative source. And 3, I don't want Twitter determining people's lives and court cases. That's horrendous. I have a Twitter account and I think I've said 7 things on it. I don't like Twitter. Just putting it out there. Sorry guys. Hated in the Nation takes place in the future when bees have been wiped out and replaced with little bee drones. But then a series of deaths start creeping up on people who committed some kind of grim offense online. It turns out the drones had been hacked. Run a game where people on Twitter can determine whether someone should live or die with the hashtag #Death2. The drones use facial recognition to hunt down their victims and take them out. The Twitter thing definitely sounds like a deadly version of cancel culture, and on the bee front, that's actually happening too. I know. Don't worry, they're not murderous yet. But the Delft University of Tech in Holland has developed the Delphi. It's a bee-like drone designed to pollinate crops for Holland's agricultural industry. No deaths yet though. It's been pretty safe because they're busy. Number 6, crocodile. This episode freaks me out. I watched it and it was just like boiling. My blood was just slowly boiling over. Similar to another segment on this list, what if your memories could be extracted? A terrifying thought, I know. Invasive and probably embarrassing, but like it could be really good to find out if somebody committed a crime or not, I gotta say, but how far are you willing to go to get that information, you know? Crocodile is a pool of mixed morality, crime, and the lengths people will go to keep a dark secret hidden. Mia, the lead character, has a dark secret in her past, as you can probably guess. Years down the road, something happens, somebody comes back, the case begins to unravel when an insurance investigator named Shazia harvests people's memories to uncover a nearby accident that somehow involves Mia. Mia does everything she can to keep it under wraps, often leading her hands to getting really dirty. Memory extraction does sound impossible, which is why this new tech is terrifying. Yeah, there's actually tech on it. Scientists at the University of California, Berkeley, have succeeded in decoding and reconstructing people's dynamic visual experience, aka they turn someone's memories into movies, albeit not very clear ones. The tech is very far away from being as regularly used as it was in this episode, but it is indeed on the way and scientists are thinking about it. Should they think about it? I don't know. Let us know in the comments. How do we know? I mean, I'm super soft. I mean, they'll see a lot of videos of my dog in my head if they were doing that. You know what I mean? Dog, coffee shops. Just check my Instagram. You know, that's what I see every day. That's what I like. I'm not afraid, but let us know in the comments what you think. Number 5, Hang the DJ. Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, Christian Mingle. Swiping love is in. Whether you're shopping around for a buddy for the evening or your whole life, everyone is talking about dating apps. So it shouldn't be a surprise that something like this is already on the way. Hang the DJ is one of the few episodes that actually have a positive note to it. Not gonna spoil the ending. The episode centers around a dating system that automatically pairs people together with no free will. A man and a woman escape, and I won't spoil it for you. But individuals in the show can be matched together with percentages as high as 99%. That's amazing. How great would it be to know that you and this person get along, and then imagine not getting along with them. That's awkward. It is possible that dating websites could get as accurate as is depicted in the show. There is already algorithmic matching going on different websites, which is steadily being improved. Dylan Hendricks, program director of the 10-year forecast at the research organization the Institute of the Future, has his predictions. He says, as we accumulate more data about ourselves, about how people are reacting in different situations, I won't be surprised if we find in the next 2 years a system that can match people with these kinds of percentages. 2 years! Woo! Better get your Bumble game on. Super strong, you gotta know what you're doing. Number 4, Archangel. The Black Mirror episode of Archangel sounds pretty real already, and I remember watching this thinking, wow, that's insane. I sound 80 years old when I'm saying this, but when I was a kid, I didn't have a cell phone. Like, up until I was 14, up until I got my first job, I wasn't allowed a cell phone. I was just like, I just was where I was supposed to be. And that kind of blows my mind. I didn't text my mom. If I was going to a friend's house, I called on the landline. She had a cell phone though, but I never had a cell phone. Now, kids are getting cell phones younger and younger because it's an easy way to keep track of where your kids are. They can just text you or call you if they're in trouble. It's super convenient. Why, as a parent, when you have 100 other things to worry about, shouldn't your kid have a cell phone if it's that easy to keep track of them? However, Archangel takes that and blows it up. Archangel is a system that takes that one step further. Marie, the mother, has her daughter implanted with a device that will monitor her daughter's position, health, emotional state, and even filter out dangerous images. So for instance, she'd be walking by a barking dog and she wouldn't see it, it'd be blurred out. But this extreme parenting style takes a dark turn as Sarah grows up and begins to rebel because she realizes she has no privacy. Fitbits already track our health and heart rate, our phones do that too, with impressive tech updates no doubt on the way. Our phones can track where we are. Now all we need is these two things to be combined into one device and, well, parents have at her. Or don't. Don't do that. Just, we need to learn how to do things, otherwise if the world explodes, we won't know how to start fires and like keep ourselves warm. That's an extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Number 3, nosedive. Since I started working at Most Amazing 9 months ago, this episode seems more real than ever. What with clickbait, likes, comments, and views being crucial for the company's success, you literally determine whether we can pay our rent or not. Let's get meta. Then turn over to social media and TikTok. The success of whole businesses can be determined just by how many people follow them or who they're using as their advertisers. Not to mention all of our acting careers here at the channel. Having a better Insta? Could be good. The episode Nosedive depicts a society entirely dictated by social media status. It allows you to buy a house, a car, etc. Today, social media presence matters despite how hard some of us say it doesn't. But also get this, according to Wired, in 2014 the State Council, China's governing cabinet, publicly called for the establishment of a nationwide tracking system to rate the reputations of individuals, businesses, and even government officials. The aim is for every Chinese citizen to be trailed by a file compiling data from public and private sources by 2020, so it already happened, and for those files to be searchable by fingerprints and other biometric characteristic. The State Council calls it a credit system that covers the whole society, unquote. So in other words, this isn't slowly coming true, it's already here. Number 2, the entire history of you. The episode The Entire History of You centers around the use of eye contacts capable of recording the events of our lives that can be replayed later. It's pretty freaky, and from the episode looks pretty depressing to be honest. No reason to be present if you have it on film. This device directly taps into memory, something we cannot yet do. But as you can guess, this kind of invention is already on the way. Snap Inc. spectacles can record up to 10 seconds of video. Entire herds of people already use their phones to record concerts as they're currently watching them. I can actually understand how this tech could be helpful for people with Alzheimer's. Replaying memories could give them the foundation they need to feel assured and not as restless and not like they're being lied to. Maybe. But of course, Elon Musk has proposed an interface called Neuralink, which links directly to the human brain. This minimally invasive device will send data to a computer or smartphone and has uses beyond seeing if your partner is faithful or not. But still, we are getting closer. And last but not least, be right back. If you want to watch something tonight that will first like soothe your little heart and then absolutely haunt you for the rest of your days, this is it. My jaw dropped to the floor when I found out this was kind of coming true. Freaked out. For context, a couple is separated by death when the husband passes away in a car accident. Overwhelmed by grief, the widow seeks comfort through an online platform that formulates a virtual version of the husband based on his social media presence. I won't spoil the rest, but honestly, who wouldn't want that? To talk to your loved ones again, hear their voices, even like be able to see them in like a weird kind of AI version. But I think we can all see how that can go wrong. Grief can drive you mad. But enter Eater 9, currently in its beta stages, but it is basically a social media network that will rely on an AI version of you called the Counterpart. This is real, guys. This is freaking real. The Counterpart will comment and interact just like you would if you were present. It is a cyber eternity, and one of the taglines is really eerie. And it's supposed to be like really hopeful, but I find it creepy. Eternizing is a way of keeping your thoughts and posts for all time. Are you curious? Come meet your counterpart and become eternal. Challenge the impossible. I would like to get off the boat now.
Starting us off with number 10 is the untimely prediction. Now this story was shared by Matthew Palmer, who said his mum Susan never believed in psychics or clairvoyance or anything like that. But one day though, she did decide to see a psychic and they told her her husband would die after her son turned 13. And this was whatever to Susan since she didn't even have a kid at that point. Either way, Matthew was soon born and his parents would often joke about the prediction, yet the joke was on them in the end because 3 weeks after Matthew's 13th birthday, his dad passed away. Matthew went on to say his mum actually couldn't get over the fact the prediction came true and was in total shock, as honestly anybody would be. See, that's like the kind of prediction I don't want. Can you imagine a prediction of like the death of a loved one? I would just be thinking about that constantly. Coming in at number 9 is The Secret. This one's from Redditor Jess D4112EA1FB, like that's very long, who said after her grandpa passed away, her mum decided to go to a medium. During the session, the medium told the mum that the grandpa had had another child that he had never told her about. Stunned, the mum asked the granddad's second wife, who confirmed that was 100% true. Now the real tea was that her grandparents had had a kid before getting married, but since that was in like archaic times and premarital sex was like the worst thing of life, possibly worse than murder, so they put the baby up for adoption. If I was the mum though, I would have been so pissed about finding this out after my dad died. Like that's such a huge secret and I feel like that's something you have the right to know and he should have told her. I'm just like salty on her behalf, but at least she does know now. Thank you to you, medium. At number 8 now we have the protection stones. This one was shared by Kylie K3 on Reddit, who said she was about to get into her car after doing some errands when a psychic rushed out of his shop and grabbed her. She gave Kylie a bunch of protection stones and told her to promise to always carry them everywhere, and the whole time she was saying this, she was just looking nervous and anxious and staring at Kylie's car. Either way, she took the stones and went on her way a bit weirded out, and 3 weeks later she was lifelined after a car accident and declared dead on arrival, but was miraculously brought back to life whilst doctors were trying to restart her heart. She went on to say after that event she literally does not go anywhere without the stones, and I can honestly see why. You don't go anywhere without the stones, Kylie, you're gonna get killed. You already got lifelined once. Filling our number 7 slot is the bear. This one was submitted by Tammy, who said during a reading with a psychic she was warned about a bear. The psychic told her she had a vision about a bear and many signs from guardian angels telling her to warn the woman of a bear incident. The girl thought this made sense because she herself had also had a vision recently where she saw a bear coming towards her daughter in the yard. But the family hadn't encountered any bears that year, so she thought the whole thing was just super unlikely. Psych! That same day, a mere 4 hours later, a bear came running from the direction she saw in her vision right towards her daughter, who was also in the same spot. She grabbed her daughter and ran, but I feel like this is like a double psychic whammy. Like, Tammy, are you sure you're not psychic too? I don't walk around having predictive visions of my life. Like, what is this? I deserve that too. I need to know what's happening. I know nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow. I know what I know nothing. So that's great. Now at number 6 is The Accident. Famous psychic Susan Saxman, author of The Reluctant Psychic, shared the story as one of the most bizarre encounters she's ever had. She said she was in Florida at one point and a boy came in for a reading and she was immediately overcome with the feeling of fear. She told him that he should never drive because she had seen a really bad car accident when reading him, so she just kept emphasizing to stay out of the car and don't even bother getting a license. A month later, Susan received a call from the boy's mom saying he had died in a car accident while his friend was driving. He was speeding down the highway and was literally thrown out the window of the car. So she literally predicted this guy's death, and he even semi-listened to her by not driving himself, but still, when a very accurate and reliable psychic tells you not to get into a car, you listen to her. Coming in at number 5 is the mind reading. This one freaked me out, honestly. Like, I want to go to the psychic as well because I was like, how is this even possible? Either way, Reddit user Michaela B 4601-507AD, again a lot of numbers, she shared that after her grandpa died, her mum wanted to go to a psychic and she went with her for emotional and moral support. On the way there, Michaela couldn't stop thinking about what the Bible says about psychics, but she didn't want to voice that to her mum because she didn't want to make her feel bad about going. When they got there though, the first thing the psychic said was, before I go on, I just want to say that God gave me this gift and is totally cool with me using it. You were worrying about that on the way over, right? Michaela freaked the hell out and lied, saying she wasn't freaking out about that, but she clearly was, and what the hell? Like, I thought psychics just got feelings about things. Like, this is proper mind reading. Like, what What is this? But what is this? What is this? At number 4 is the unlikely reunion. This one was shared by Denise, who said she's been to many psychics over the years who have read her pretty well, but there was one that she'll never forget. So a bit of background story, Denise is adopted and she went to a psychic and didn't mention that fact. The psychic told her in her late 30s her biological sister would start searching for her. As predicted, when Denise was 39 years old, her sister found her and she was reunited with her whole biological family, which included 2 more brothers. The next day was her 40th birthday, and that was the day she met her biological parents and family for the first time. What a heartwarming story, honestly. I love when they live happily ever after. Denise, I hope you're doing well. Peace and love to you. And obviously everyone else on this list that went through horrible things. My thoughts and prayers are with you too. But as we've seen, thoughts and prayers don't really do anything in our day and age, do they? Filling our number 3 slot is the pain. This one was shared by Cheryl, who said she sees a psychic about once every 2 years or so. 10 years ago, she was at a market fair and was waiting to see a psychic, but there was quite a long line. For some reason, she was drawn to another psychic nearby and decided to go to her instead. And the first thing this one said was, "Has your mother passed over to the other side?" Cheryl replied saying her mother was still alive, so the psychic asked whether she had spoken to her recently. While asking questions, the psychic kept moving her hand over her lower back and right hip, saying she was feeling this really strong pain in those areas. She went on to say she didn't know if Cheryl's mum had gotten hurt or fallen somewhere, but to check on her for sure. And Cheryl honestly just kind of forgot about the whole thing until 6 months later. Her mum called her saying she was going to the hospital, and on the day of her operation, Cheryl asked if it had anything to do with her back or hip, and she said she had bowel cancer. So this psychic saw this cancer coming before it even properly developed. But also, Cheryl, shame on you for being so uninvolved that you asked your mother what the problem was the day of her surgery, not before. Like, hello, care about your mother. She gave birth to you, she carried you for 9 months, bloody hell, Cheryl. The disrespect. Now at number 2 is Jean Dixon. So Jean was actually one of the most famous self-proclaimed psychics ever, and even did readings for Nancy and Ronald Reagan. In 1956, she wrote a column in Parade magazine saying the winner of the election was to be assassinated or die in office, though not necessarily in his first term. So she essentially predicted the assassination of JFK, and she also predicted the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and then after that, Nixon started following her predictions, and she predicted a bunch of terrorist attacks back in 1972, which actually ended up happening. And that prediction actually led Nixon to make a cabinet committee on counter-terrorism. So safe to say Jean was pretty on the mark with most things, but she also got a decent amount of things wrong, so it's like, which one is it gonna be, Jean? Do I trust you or nah? Give me just damn trust issues over here, like I can't. But either way, that did go on to become the Dixon effect, which means that people tend to remember the accurate predictions while ignoring a huge number of inaccurate ones. Which I feel like is true. I feel like if someone predicts something right and it's a very big event, they're like, oh, there was 100 other things you predicted that were wrong? Screw them. And finally, at number 1 is the environmental psychic. Australian-born psychic Geoffrey R. Palmer has made a lot of true and untrue predictions. He predicted the December 2004 Indian Ocean volcano eruption and the tsunamis that hit Indonesia that followed. More than 230,000 people died in these disasters, and Palmer had predicted all of it. Literally all of it. He also accurately predicted Korea was testing nuclear weapons, but what shot him to fame was predicting Hurricane Katrina. Ranking in the top 5 deadliest hurricanes to hit the US, it's safe to say Geoffrey has like a strong connection to the earth somehow, and he's damn good at his job as well. Hurricane Katrina, give yourself a pat on the back for that one, Geoffrey.
Starting off this countdown, we have Trump's presidency. I swear, this is the prediction that started it all. Back in 2000s, The Simpsons aired an episode titled Bart to the Future. Basically, in this episode, Bart gets a glimpse into what the future is gonna be like. In the episode, we see that Lisa Simpson is the president and is attempting to rebuild the economy after President Trump has left the office. In the episode, during a cabinet meeting, we see Lisa in the Oval Office as she talks about the aftermath of President Trump's reign. She actually uses the words President Trump. And then fast forward a couple of years later, Trump indeed became president. Now this shocked a lot of people because how did they predict his presidency 16 years before it actually happened? Like, that's just too freaky. Coming in at number 9, we have the economic prediction. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up, because you know what, it really helps us out. In the same episode and the same scene I was just talking about, we see what happens after Trump leaves office. While in the show, Lisa ends up being his successor, which obviously is not gonna happen in real life because she's
not real. We do see something that Lisa has to deal with that might be similar to what Joe Biden will have to deal with. In the episode, after being voted the next president, Lisa mentions how she will be taking office in a time where the economy is really struggling. And you know what? The pandemic has had an unprecedented effect on not just the American economy, but has truly impacted our global economy as well. It's kind of crazy how they not only predicted the fact that President Trump would win the election, but also just more detail about him leaving office. I honestly would love to take a peek at the crystal ball that the writers seem to have. Coming in at number 8, we have the election results. Back in 2012, it said that The Simpsons managed to predict the exact outcome of the 2020 election results. This one is fairly creepy. So the prediction takes place in a Fox special called Mr. Burns Endorses Romney, and it was for the 2012 presidential election. It's only a minute and 50 seconds long, but in it we see Mr. Burns in front of a map, showing the red and blue states for the election. What's freaky is that they look very similar to the 2020 Biden and Trump electoral map. I mean, at first glance, it looks identical, meaning The Simpsons somehow predicted the outcome of each and every state. Upon closer inspection, they did get one thing wrong, which was Arizona. The show had it as a red state, but in reality it was blue. Still, how did they manage to pretty much get the exact election results? Keep in mind, the episode is 8 years old. Coming in at number 7, we have Trump's death. This image of an animated President Trump in a coffin has circulated the internet many times, especially in the last 4 years. In 2020, the image gained much more popularity after President Trump, as well as his wife, were tested positive for the coronavirus. Then people began to speculate that The Simpsons predicted President Trump passing away. Last year, there was a TikTok that went viral telling people that on the 27th of August, something big was gonna happen. More and more people began to run with this trend, and soon everyone was talking about what was going to happen on the 27th of August, and it ended up getting linked to this image from The Simpsons. People were saying that the episode had predicted his death and that it would occur on that date. Well, obviously that didn't happen, as it turns out the picture was actually fake. While most people assumed it was a still taken from an episode, this actually never happened once throughout the series. But who knows, maybe in the future The Simpsons will come out with an episode that will have that. Who knows? And at number 6, we have the Civil War. With the events that took place on January 6th at Capitol Hill, the hashtag Civil War is trending on Twitter. A lot of people are scared that a war will break out once Joe Biden takes Trump's spot at president. Let's hope that's not the case. But people quickly turn to The Simpsons to see how this might pan out. You know, because they're psychic. In particular, let's look at the Treehouse of Horror Halloween special. In this special, which aired on November 1st, 2020, it starts with Homer having to vote for either Putin or Trump in the election. Fast forward, the episode cuts to a scene that says January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day. And it's basically the apocalypse. Homer is on his roof wearing pots and pans as armor. Typical Homer. While his town is destroyed and on fire. Obviously, inauguration hasn't happened yet, but people are fearful that when it does, a civil war will happen, and that this Simpsons prediction will come true. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the statue stealing. Now, there are 2 instances of statue stealing that I want to talk about that may have foreshadowed that photo that I'm sure you guys have all seen of one of the rioters carrying the podium around after he stormed Capitol Hill. The first time is in an episode called The Telltale Head, where we see Bart steal the head of the Jebediah Springfield statue. The second instance is from season 11, episode 12, called The Mansion Family. In this episode, as the family is leaving an award show, after Homer didn't win an award, we see him attempting to drag a much larger version of the award statue out of the venue with him. He exclaims to the family, "What a great night it was for everyone," before Marge quickly lets him know that the statue is not an award, but actually is set decoration. While this isn't an exact prediction of the events that we saw at Capitol Hill, that guy carrying the podium probably could have just used some of Marge's advice. And when you compare the images side by side, it does look a little freaky. In our 4th spot, we have Ivanka 2028. In the season 28 Halloween episode of The Simpsons, right at the beginning, we see the family dressed up in costumes as they are trick-or-treating. Homer is dressed as Bender from Futurama, which is a hilarious crossover joke, but that's not why we're here. At one point, Homer opens up the front part of his costume to reveal that he's wearing an Ivanka 2028 pin. Now, it's only 2021, so we don't know if she's gonna run in 2028. Who knows, okay? It's The Simpsons. It could happen. Moving on to number 3, we have the Rioter. On January 6th of 2021, an angry mob of President Trump's supporters stormed Capitol Hill. As you've probably heard, there were thousands of rioters that showed up to cause violence, and you get the gist. They began smashing windows and vandalizing the building, and the rioters ended up getting into the Senate chamber, where prior the election results were being certified. Many were seen waving Trump 2020 flags or wearing Keep America Great memorabilia. After this happened, an image started circulating on Twitter of what happens to be groundskeeper Willie, wearing an outrageous outfit with tattoos and face paint on his body. In fact, it was the same outfit that a rioter named Jake Angeli was wearing as he stormed Capitol Hill. Both Willie and Jake were seen wearing a fur hat with horns sticking out. They had face paint on their face in the colors of the American flag, and they have the same tattoos. This freaked everyone out. Like, how could The Simpsons predict this down to every last detail? Now, it turns out that this prediction is false. It had been photoshopped on purpose to look like the rioter. But The Simpsons may have still predicted the riots. Which takes me to my next point. And at number 2, we have the riots. So let's continue on with the recent riot that happened at Capitol Hill. What's creepy is the fact that The Simpsons might have predicted this in a number of different episodes. One of the times was during an episode titled Beyond Blunderdome, which was released in 1999. This episode features Mel Gibson and is meant to be a parody of the film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. In this episode, Mel's character starts shooting at congressmen and causes hell on the Senate floor. It ends with him blowing up the building. Thankfully, that did not happen, but people think that this episode foreshadows what is yet to come. And in our number 1 spot, we have the storming of Capitol Hill. Again, another very scary prediction about Capitol Hill. For this, let's take a look at the 1996 episode titled The Day the Violence Died. This episode was meant to be a parody of the 1976 Schoolhouse Rock segment, I'm Just a Bill. The Simpsons version was I'm an amendment to be. In the episode when the amendment is ratified, the character then says, "Doors open, boys," to which a ton of other amendment or bill looking characters start storming up the steps of the Capitol Hill building. They're holding a bunch of weapons to defend themselves. Some have been making the comparison that this is what the actual scene at the Capitol building looked like on January 6th. It's pretty creepy.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have war. Starting off in this list today, we have one Nostradamus prediction that is honestly half right at this point. In his book of quatrain poems, he wrote, quote, "Under the opposite Babylonian climate, great will be without the outpouring." I am certainly no prophet, so I had to turn to the internet for some help on what exactly this meant, and apparently this is the prediction that 2022 will be the year we see the first climate war. People have said that this prediction is likely to be between neighboring countries who will be fighting over dwindling resources. We are currently experiencing a war right now with the invasion of Ukraine by its neighbor Russia, but of course that is not over climate change or any kind of resources, which is why I say this prediction is half right. It's a terrifying prediction considering how we are barely through the first 2 months of the year and we are already seeing this kind of conflict. We can just hope this isn't setting the stage for what's to come for the rest of the year. In our number 9 spot today, we have hunger. This Nostradamus prediction has to do with this little riddle. He wrote, quote, "Of blood and hunger greater calamity, 7 times oppressed to the marine beach. Monarch of hunger, place taken, captivity." This one is said to mean that he is predicting that this year we will see an increase in world hunger as a result of the rise in armed conflicts. Okay. This list is not the one any of us want to hear. It starts off bad and it just gets worse. We're only on number 9. This is the Roaring 20s, everyone. So yeah, this one's a little nerve-wracking, especially considering the world news right now. Firstly, that's a prediction that there's just gonna be more bad, more war, more weapons. That's certainly never great on its own, but this coupled with an increase in a problem we already see a lot of, definitely makes sense that these two things would be coupled together, but it's just a grim prediction for the future. In our number 8 spot today, we have Paris. Okay, I'm starting to see a theme with these predictions and I'm gonna be honest, I don't like it. I'm glad that Nostradamus doesn't have a 100% batting rate, or else this year would be shaping up to be absolutely terrible. In his book of quatrains he wrote, quote, "All around the great city will be soldiers lodged by fields and cities." People who are much smarter than me have said that this means that he is predicting that this year Paris will be under siege. That would be terrible and completely unexpected. Maybe people are misinterpreting it though, and it means something different. Like perhaps there will be some sort of closures or something like that within the city. I don't know. I'm just trying to be glass half full, but it's hard. Again, this guy's been wrong plenty of times before, so let's just hope this is all a case of that. In our number 7 spot today we have Battle. Okay, this is a Nostradamus prediction that eerily has almost come true at this point. He wrote, "Bluehead shall whiteheads harm in such degree as France's good to both shall e'er amount." The first time I read that out loud, I thought to myself, what in the world does that mean? Seriously. These predictions couldn't be any less clear, but thank goodness for the internet people who deciphered it for me. People believe that this prediction is meant to mean that war will be reaching Europe in the spring of this year. This is certainly a terrifying prediction based on what is currently going on in the world, and with all of the uncertainty that lies around it, it definitely is a dark one. Maybe it's all just a coincidence, but there are people out there who really believe in Nostradamus's prophetic powers, so maybe it's not. I mean, this is a prediction that I actually already talked about in another list, but with everything that's happened in the last few months, it seems as though now it has a completely different meaning and likelihood. In our number 6 spot today we have inflation. This Nostradamus prediction is said to be about inflation. He wrote, quote, "No abbots, monks, no novices to learn, honey shall cost far more than candle wax, so high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in his despair." Well, that doesn't sound good. We can all take our pick of reasons as to why this prediction is potentially likely to come true. It's really that ending line that has me feeling a little nervous though. Is Nostradamus telling us to eat the rich, or is he just telling us how bad things might become? Many believe that this prediction is his way of explaining that inflation and increase in starvation may just lead to some sort of a rebellion. I mean, that isn't the most far off prediction I've ever heard of, and if things unfortunately do go that way, I could see something similar coming true, but maybe I'm just easily persuaded. In our number 5 spot today we have iRobot. This is a prediction that comes from Nostradamus and is actually about our ever increasing technological world. Technology in our world evolves very rapidly, and it's tough to make predictions about what this year holds, but this prediction for Nostradamus reads, quote, "The moon in the full of night over the high mountain, the new sage with a lone brain sees it, by his disciples invited to be immortal, eyes to the south, hands in bosoms, bodies in the fire." Many people believe that this prediction made by Nostradamus is said to be about, quote, immortal disciples and the potentially negative consequences which people are taking to mean artificial intelligence. AI is everywhere now, from smart speakers, text prediction, facial recognition, self-driving cars. It's not just that like weirdly, insanely human-looking robot with realistic facial expressions, although that also does exist. People for years have been predicting something negative coming in terms of all of this new AI technology, but perhaps the first to do it was Nostradamus himself. In our number 4 spot today we have the dictator. This Nostradamus prediction is an interesting one for sure. According to those who interpret his prophecies, he is said to have predicted that in 2022 we will see the death of a dictator. Of course, he didn't predict exactly who this would be. If he did, that would be pretty insane. If he was even able to predict who would be a dictator in 2022, I would be thoroughly impressed. But since he didn't, of course people want to speculate about who this could be. I always find it so interesting to hear these kinds of predictions because I always wish I could know what exactly led them to think that this might come true. It's not really like an outlandish prediction if it were to come true, but it would be very strange how it could have been accurately predicted so long ago. Maybe it won't be a dictator in the end though, maybe it's just some sort of powerful leader or a leader of a large company perhaps. It's tough to say for sure, but I feel like if this one ends up coming true, we'll definitely know about it. In our number 3 spot today we have the end. This one comes from the list of Nostradamus predictions that he had, and it predicts a pretty grim situation. Apparently he wrote, quote, "Few young people half dead to give start." While a vivid imagination might be able to come up with a few ideas of what this might be predicting, apparently people have said that this prediction is intended to be about the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. It's both good and terrifying to know that people have been thinking of the zombie apocalypse for centuries. It's not just part of our modern world. Apparently Nostradamus wrote that the apocalypse would start off with a Russian scientist and lead to total extinction. Okay, well, that's something nice to look forward to. I started off glass half full and I'm trying to keep it that way, but at this point, it's getting hard. Maybe all the doomsday preppers are right. At this point, only time will tell. In our number 2 spot today, we have asteroids. This is one of those predictions that seemingly pops up every year and doesn't just come from long ago. It's basically the idea that an asteroid is going to impact Earth. It's a prediction that no one wants to come true, but for some reason we always guess that it might. It's really weird. Humans are strange. Nostradamus' words were, quote, "Fire do I see that from the sky shall fall." I'm not exactly sure if he means like a small meteor shower kind of thing, or if he's talking dinosaur mass extinction, it's the apocalypse sort of a thing, but either way, it's a little unnerving. Last year in 2021 we had a, quote, near miss with asteroid 2021 GW4, but it wasn't thought to be a huge deal either way because it is likely that it would have broken up in our atmosphere. Right now it is said that the next near miss prediction is for around 2029, and that's from scientists, so at this point I feel like we're probably safe, but who's to say for sure? People have also suggested that perhaps instead of asteroids, that this prediction might be about missiles falling from the sky, which is honestly just as terrifying as the asteroid. So at this point this prediction is looking all bad. In our number 1 spot today we have gone nuclear. This Nostradamus prediction is one that could certainly become a reality at any point, which is something that is pretty terrifying. In this day and age, the threat of nuclear attack, while not an imminent threat, is always kind of there hanging out in the back of people's minds. Like, it's not something most people think about every day, but it's just something that we know people possess the technology and the ability to do. You know? And like I've mentioned many times today, with the things that are currently going on, it seems as though it's more than just a hanging out at the back of our minds kind of thing. It's a scary reality. That's why this Nostradamus prediction is just a little eerie, as he claims a nuclear will explode in 2022, and if this wasn't bad enough, it has some very harsh implications. He is said to have predicted that this explosion will lead to changes in not only the climate, but also the Earth's position. I'm not exactly certain what he means by the Earth's position, but I do know that that sounds terrible and terrifying.
Starting off this countdown, we have David Booth. In 1979, a man named David Booth had constant nightmares about an American Airlines commercial jet crashing and burning into flames. Since the dreams were so ongoing, he actually called American Airlines and spoke to them about his concerns and dreams. Then on May 25th, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 crashed shortly after takeoff when its left engine fell off. Sadly, 273 passengers died in the crash. And guess what? The details of the crash accurately matched the description of David's nightmares. He had tried to warn them, but they didn't listen to him until it was too late. In our 9th spot, we have 9/11. This next individual shared on Reddit that they had visions of the 9/11 tragedy days before it even took place. So in their dream, he was in a tall skyscraper with his mom when all of a sudden planes started crashing into it. His mom and him had no choice than to jump from the building before it collapsed completely. Now, he didn't think much of it, he just thought that it was a normal nightmare, until he heard the news of the World Trade Center days later. In our 8th spot, we have the car accident. This next nightmare literally saved a man's life. So this man was startled when he had a dream about getting into a near-death car accident. In the dream, he was in his girlfriend's car when they got T-boned by another car and crashed. He then crawled out of the car and waited on the curb, crawled up in a little ball until the ambulance got there. Again, just a dream, so he brushed it off. Until one day, he was getting into his now ex-girlfriend's car when he was overcome by this bad sensation. But he got into the car anyways. But he knew something bad was going to happen. He just didn't know what. Anyways, he said that he never wears a seatbelt, but his gut told him to buckle up, and good thing that he did, because shortly after they got into a car crash. They were T-boned by another car. He then crawled out of the car and waited on the curb, crawled up in a ball until the ambulance arrived, just like in his dream. The scariest part? The accident happened in the exact same spot as in his dream, and he was wearing the same outfit as he was in the dream. In our 7th spot, we have Sharon Tate. Actress Sharon Tate's time in the spotlight was cut short after she was killed by Charles Manson's cult. But turns out that Sharon had dreams about her own death prior to it happening. About a year prior to her murder, she had a terrible dream in which she saw herself and Jay Sebring dead. She said, and I quote, "I saw something or someone tied to the staircase. Whoever it was, I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but I knew somehow that it was either Jay or me. He or she was cut open at the throat. When Tate was murdered, she was spending the night with Jay, who was also killed." Tate was found with an X sliced into her stomach. In our 6th spot today, we have Abraham Lincoln. A few days before Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, he had dreams about his own death. In the dream, he was dead and saw his own corpse in front of him with soldiers and visitors around it weeping for him. In his dream, he asked one of the guards what had happened, and then the guard told him that the president was assassinated. Skip forward 3 days later, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with The Father. On January 7th of 2009, a 6-year-old boy, Bara Abd al-Rahman Badi, woke up from his nap screaming and crying. He yelled out, "My father is dead, my father is dead." Just then, there was an explosion in a nearby city. They later learned that his father was dead. He had been killed in the explosion. How freaky is that? But also, how traumatizing is that for the kid? We have the tsunami. This story was posted by Reddit user Anthem29. Several years ago, they had a dream that they were in an airport trying to get a flight to Japan. But all the flights were either booked or canceled. They kept trying to get a trip to Japan, but the customer service reps said that he couldn't. Something bad had happened there. When he woke up, he was extremely confused. Why was he dreaming about Japan? He had no connection there and hadn't even thought about traveling there. A couple hours later, he got news that there had been a huge, disastrous earthquake and tsunami in Japan. Now, this one might just be a coincidence, but still, how freaky, like out of nowhere, they had a dream about Japan and then the next day, tragedy strikes there? It's just wild. In our 3rd spot, we have The Warning. One night, this woman had a dream in which there was a woman standing at the foot of her bed telling her to move her 2 daughters out of their bedroom. The same dream occurred back to back for the next 3 days. So on the 3rd night, she moved her daughters out of their room. And it's a good thing that she did, because that night, the roof over their beds collapsed and a huge beam dropped right across their beds. If she didn't listen to this dream, her daughters could have been crushed by this beam. That literally rhymed. Dream beam. Moving on to number 2, we have The Stabbing. This story was shared by Unusual Travel Chick on Reddit. So while at a sleepover with her friends, this woman had a scary dream in which someone was chasing her around with a knife. She woke up startled and yelled, "Someone near me is going to die." The next few days, she was very, very anxious. She was telling her friends and family to all be careful. After 2 days went by, she started to think that, okay, maybe it was just a nightmare, until she got a call from her sister in Texas. Her sister told her that her cousin was stabbed in the neck while at a nightclub. But thankfully, he survived. Needless to say, everyone in her family were quite spooked when this happened because she had been warning them of a stabbing for days prior. And in the number 1 spot today, we have Earl May Jones. In October of 1966, a young girl named Earl May Jones woke up from a nightmare scared. She immediately told her mother about it. She said that in the dream, a black substance wiped out her school and killed her. A couple days later, she told her mom that she was not afraid to die because she was going to be with her school friends, Peter and June. The mother was like, "What's she going on about? That's just kinda weird," but then she shrugged off the comments. That was until a couple days later on October 21st. On that day, 110,000 cubic meters of coal, wastewater, and shale slid down the mountain and crashed into the town. It hit Earl's school and killed 141 students and teachers, including Earl, Peter, and June. This little girl's nightmare predicted a terrible tragedy and her own death.
Number 10, is 2021 going to be as dark as 2020 was?
Allahu Akbar! Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Takbir! Allahu Akbar!
I mean, it absolutely sucks right now, and at the time of this recording, I don't even know who the American president is. Is it Kanye West? Pretty sure he got 50,000 votes. Hashtag Kanye West for 2024. You can do it. I think Michelle Obama should run, but I still think Kanye West has got it over Michelle. Well, apparently there's predictions saying 2021 will bring an invasion of Muslim extremists over Europe, and that the continent will face chemical attacks from these so-called Muslim invaders. Looks like this group has already been in the UK since 2009, and probably even before that. Could this prediction be true? Well, we're coming up to 2021, we'll find out. So before we get into number 9, make sure you guys hit the like button, and you're gonna want to hit the like button for this one because we are gonna be doing a PS5 giveaway. I'm super excited for that one. Make sure you guys head over to my Instagram account at Landon Productions. Look for this contest picture and tell me what games would you play for the PS5, and make sure you follow me and tag 3 friends in the post. So as soon as I'm able to order the PS5, I'm gonna order a bunch of them and give them out to you guys. So moving into number 9.
I'm speaking to you at what I know is an increasingly challenging time. A time of disruption in the life of our country.
So if that's not bad enough for Europe, she also predicted the economic fall of Europe for the year 2021. Next up at number 8, in 2021, Baba Vanga claimed we will see an assassination attempt against Vladimir Putin, Russia's president. What's more, well, she thought the threat to him would be coming from his own country. These are traitors from the country he was born in.
Using a military mine to attack his motorcade. But the report doesn't mention just where they hope to get that sort of hardware from.
He has already had an attempt against his life before he was technically president. That was back in 2012. Could she be right in thinking it can actually happen for real? Number 7.
I came here, wasn't feeling so well. I feel much better now.
Speaking of presidents, Baba Vanga predicted that Donald Trump, president of the United States, unless Joe Biden won. Well, the prediction on this one is that the president would suffer from a severe illness. So maybe that's Joe Biden. Maybe he's the president and the prediction shifts a little bit and we're talking about him. Well, this illness will render him deaf and result in brain trauma. Pretty tragic. I hope this doesn't come true. I wish no ill on anybody, but actually this could have happened earlier when Donald Trump had COVID. Maybe this was the prediction, and well, the president did get sick, but I have no idea how he made a remarkable recovery. I mean, he's hiding the cure from all of us. I know we're talking about Baba Vanga here, but the Simpsons are also pretty good at predicting things that actually happened. We have a video about it, so if you guys want to check it out, make sure you guys click right over here. So we all know the Simpsons has been known to predict the future. It makes you wonder, how the heck are they doing it? And moving right along, number 6.
Not being by nature particularly attracted to the ineffable or the mysterious. However, it seems that the idea of higher consciousness is in fact a very interesting one.
In what was more of an opinion or a statement, she claimed that the consciousness of people as a whole will change, and that we are witnessing devastating events that will change not only our outlook on life, but the fate and destiny of humanity.
Human consciousness can be enhanced, maintained, and transferred through and onto any hardware device or cloud service entity.
Talk about being dark. Number 5. Trains will fly by sunlight. This one is quite a famous prediction, but it isn't clear if she was referring to them as being, solar powered or actually whizzing by the sun in the solar system. Maybe she's referring to the Virgin's Hyperloop train that is said to travel as fast as commercial airplanes through tunnels that look pretty futuristic and cut travel time down from hours to just minutes. And moving right along to number 4.
The universe owes you a debt of gratitude for bringing this to my attention. Now, in terms of how we handle this moving forward, obviously, Earth is canceled.
Beyond 2021, she predicted that life in the cosmos will be discovered, and even went as far to say that it will be in that moment we will all understand how life on Earth came to be.
Is what now?
All humans on Earth and in the afterlife will be extinguished, and we will start the entire human race over from scratch.
And just like that, coming in at number 3. For good measure, we added this one in a not so dark prediction because, well, these are all pretty dark and terrifying, especially considering Baba Vanga. Okay, I don't know if this is actually proven stats, but she's been right 85% of her predictions before her death. Whatever she was spewing out was just boom, facts coming true, boom, everything was happening. She wasn't just predicting them.
Is it possible that a cure for cancer will be available in 1 year's time?
We've been seeing the news talk about this as well. Well, BC, well, before COVID, but Baba Vanga might be right in her prediction that cancer could be cured by 2021. That last clip was from just last year. Moving on to number 2, we have this.
Baba Vanga proclaimed her prophetic abilities not only allowed her to tap into an unknown realm of information, but it also put her in contact with extraterrestrials.
Baba Vanga believes that after we learned about the creation of Earth, the next 200 years humans will be connecting with their ancestors in other worlds. I know Elon talks about it a lot, about becoming multi-planet species, and that on Earth, you know, we're gonna destroy Earth, we're not gonna be living on Earth for long. We have to find other planets to keep the fate of humanity alive. And anything that Elon Musk says, aka my hero, aka I think he's more than 85% right about predictions, whatever Elon says, I believe. So I think there's gonna be a world where my ancestors or my family members, my cousin is gonna be living on other planets. Finally, in at number 1, and maybe the most chilling prediction of all, a strong dragon will seize humanity. Is this real life right now? But hey, I thought we were talking about like the dragon, like a real dragon, you know, Game of Thrones being real life, but I think it's being referred to as China and world domination by them. It's pretty scary to know, like they have over, like, what is it, 1.3 billion people? They could probably invade where I'm from in Canada. We only have 30 million. They could probably destroy us right now.
At number 10, we have Don't Drive. This prediction came way of famous New York psychic Susan Saxman. She had a young man come in to get a reading one day, and she kept getting the same vision. This man was behind the wheel of a car, dying in a brutal car accident. She told this boy over and over again he should never drive, even suggested that he should forego getting his license. This young man was pretty freaked out by the reading, and it wasn't even 2 months later before Susan received a call from the boy's mom. He had just died in an accident just off the highway. Him and his friend were both killed. But get this, the kid who got the reading, he wasn't the one who was driving. Maybe if he had been driving, he wouldn't have died. Maybe it was the knowledge of his own future that sealed his fate. Who knows, or maybe he would have died anyways, I don't know. At number 9, we have $1.6 million curse. This is the part of the psychic business that keeps me away from it. I just think I'm too gullible. Well, a woman from Houston was told by a psychic, Sherry Uwanowicz, that her whole family was cursed. Sherry told this woman from Houston that if she wanted to lift the curse, that she would need to give her a bunch of money so she could buy all sorts of things she needed to lift the curse. The Houston woman would go to visit Sherry and kept giving her more and more money to lift this so-called curse. Sherry claimed the curse came from a witch who cursed the Houston woman's mother before she died. So she kept coming back and kept giving her more money. In total, Sherry scammed this lady for $1.6 million. One of the worst parts about this is that the lady was getting the money from her inheritance that her dead dad left for her. So Sherry was stealing money from a grieving lady and taking it from a dead man at the same time. Eventually, police caught wind of the scam, and Sherry Uwanowicz was arrested and sentenced to 3 years in prison, and she was forced to pay back all the money she conned out of this poor lady from Houston. At number 8, we have neckties. This was an anonymous statement given by a journalist at the Huffington Post. He was once scheduled to interview a medium. The journalist had never really believed in that sort of thing, but after the interview they went out for lunch and the medium offered him a free reading. Skeptical and willing to check the legitimacy of this medium, he agreed. The medium told him that there was an older woman. She was short, portly, and had thick red hair. She kept calling herself Ethel. His grandma passed away recently, and everyone called her Ethel because she looked like the actress Ethel Merman. She followed up by telling him that there was an older man with Ethel. The older man had a message for the journalist. He said, "Tell Ruthie I love her and that she can get rid of the neckties." The journalist's dad had recently passed away, and Ruthie was the nickname his dad used for his mom, and as far far as he knew, his dad was the only one who called his mom by that name. He was pretty freaked out by this, and after the medium left, he called his mom to relay the message. He told his mom that his dad said that he loved her. She started crying over the phone, then he asked about the neckties in the closet. His mom said that she had recently given away all of her late husband's belongings to Goodwill except for the neckties. Whether you believe in mediums or not, this guy's batting 1,000 for sure. At number 7 we have You Should Have Remembered. A young woman went to go see a psychic, and the psychic had a very clear, precise message for her. Stay away from the man with the long dark hair. I mean, this is kind of vague. There's loads of dudes walking around with long dark hair every day. I mean, with a straightener and some dollar store dye, I could become one of those guys. So it kind of makes sense why this girl forgot about this information. You can't just go walking through the world being afraid of men with long dark ponytails. How are you ever gonna go into a reptile shop again? Well, years later, this young woman met a man, and the two of them seemed to really hit it off. They started dating, but after being in the relationship for a few months, he became extremely abusive, and of course this man had long, dark hair. It wasn't until after she was able to get away from him that she remembered the warning that the psychic gave to her. You should really write that kind of important information down. It probably will come in handy. At number 6 we have The End. BuzzFeed member Bellac wrote about a reading her mother got from a psychic. There was some pretty straightforward stuff about who she was and who her family was and all the pretty basic psychic things. It didn't really leave her feeling too surprised. But then the psychic told her that her marriage would not end in divorce. But it was the way that he told it to her that was very strange. As if he knew something more but didn't want to give up the information. Her mom made sure to write down everything the psychic told her just to test to see if this information would actually come into reality. A few years later, her husband passed away, and she thought back on what the psychic had told her. It felt like he knew something was coming but didn't have the heart to tell her. At number 5 we have Both Are Gone. Let's dip back into Susan Saxman's files for just a moment. One day a man came to see Susan, and he was going through a rather stressful divorce. Susan gave the man a reading, and she told him that he wasn't going to get divorced, that him and his wife were never going to file the papers, and that 7 years from now he was going to have sole custody of his kid. The man was shocked, and weeks later Susan was visited by the man's wife. The lady was distraught and clearly very upset. The man who visited her previously had just died in a plane crash. I don't think that's exactly how he thought things were going to play out, but in the end they didn't get divorced, so she was right. That seemed to be the end of the story, but then 7 years later the man's wife came back to see her again. Once again she was very upset. She told Susan that she was right about everything. Her husband did have sole custody of her daughter because her daughter had just died of leukemia. At least she can have a little bit of solace knowing that her daughter and husband are together in the afterlife. At number 4 we have Stay Away from the White Building. A young woman went to go see a psychic. The reading was pretty casual, there was nothing notable happening. Then all of a sudden the psychic started trembling, nearly crying. She started telling the woman, "Don't let Dorothy go near the white building." The woman was pretty freaked out by this, but she didn't know anyone named Dorothy. Almost 15 years later, the woman's friend was murdered next to a white apartment building. Her name was Dorothy. It took so long for her to meet her new friend that she had forgotten all about the prediction that she had heard so many years ago. At number 3 we have You're Sick. Alright, this is the last Susan Saxman's one on the list, I promise. But she has some pretty awesome ones, and that's why I'm using her so many times today. Susan wrote about one woman who came to see her, and as soon as she walked into the room, Susan felt sick to her stomach. It's not abnormal for her to feel other people's pain, but this was an extreme case. She felt so ill she had to leave the room and vomit. Susan pleaded with the woman that she needed to see a professional, that she was very sick and needed to see someone immediately. The woman insisted that she was fine, and it wasn't long before Susan was reading the woman's obituary in the newspaper. At number 2 we have The Atomic Bomb. The heavenly dart withstretched its course death in the speaking. A great achievement the proud nation brought low by the stone in the tree rumors of a monstrous human. Bring purge, then explanation. These were the words written by Nostradamus. Maybe the most famous psychic who has ever walked the face of the earth. And it said that these writings were the prediction of the atomic bomb. I don't really think you can get a more cursed prediction than that of nuclear weapons. Could you imagine what it would have been like for a dude from the 1500s to see a massive explosion crushing an entire city and then being like, okay, well at least I'm going to be dead before that happens. Oof, it's a lot to weigh in your soul. And for the number 1 spot we have The Rise of Adolf Hitler. We got one more Nostradamus one for you. Of course I had to put a couple on here, he's like the most famous dude. Nostradamus used to write a bunch of poems back in the 1500s and everyone thought that he was just a huge nerd. Turns out his poems have been predicting the future and he was also a huge nerd. Probably one of the most frightening predictions he made was the rise of Adolf Hitler. Now a lot of psychics and fortune tellers talk about the Antichrist or the emergence of some great evil, but this one seems strangely accurate. What he said was, from the depths of the west of Europe, a young child will be born of poor people. He who by his tongue will seduce great troops. His fame will increase towards the realm of East, and beast ferocious with hunger will cross the rivers. The great part of the battlefield will be against Hister. Into the cage of iron will the great one be drawn, when the child of Germany is observing nothing. After reading that, you think this guy might have been onto something. Too bad psychics just give us problems and never any solutions. Like Nostradamus, you should have seen all this horrible future, found Hitler's great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, then kicked him in the nuts and make sure that he would never have kids, therefore stopping Hitler's bloodline. These psychics are always talkers, none of them are doers.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the Martian meltdown. For this one we are taking a trip off planet because finally someone is predicting that something bad is going to happen somewhere else, not right here on Earth for us all to suffer. The Prophet apparently has a grim prediction for Mars for this 2023, saying that, quote, the light of Mars will go out. Of course this is a bit different of a meaning in this day and age, so people are speculating what this could mean. While this could be a prediction that something bad might happen to the planet by fate of the cosmos, others think this could be a prediction that relates to our exploration of Mars and more specifically any upcoming manned missions. Perhaps something with a company like SpaceX with future plans to send people to Mars might happen, or perhaps we'll find evidence that a trip to Mars just isn't feasible for humans. Of course though, like with anything on this list, only time will tell. In our number 9 spot today we have the Palace Peril. One of the predictions made by Nostradamus suggested that this year there would be a, quote, celestial fire on the royal edifice. People of course have been scrambling to figure out what exactly this could mean, and so far people believe this is predicting a grim fate for Buckingham Palace. The prediction of course was made before Buckingham Palace was even built, but that doesn't mean it couldn't come to fruition. Perhaps this could be in reference to the Harry and Meghan Netflix debacle we saw last month. Some people however think that based on the words celestial fire, that perhaps the palace might be set on fire by an asteroid. I definitely am leaning towards a less literal approach, but hey, I am not the seer or the prophet here. I'm just here to tell you what he said. In our number 8 spot today we have the end. This one comes from the list of Nostradamus predictions that he had, and it predicts a pretty grim situation. Apparently he wrote, quote, few young people half dead to give start. Well, a vivid imagination might be able to come up with a few ideas of what this might be predicting. Apparently people have said that this prediction is intended to be about the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. It's both good and terrifying to note that people have been thinking of the zombie apocalypse for centuries. It's not just part of our modern world. Apparently Nostradamus wrote that the apocalypse would start off with a Russian scientist and lead to total extinction. Okay, well, that's something nice to look forward to for this year. I started off glass half full and I'm trying to keep it that way, but at this point it's getting hard. Maybe all of the doomsday preppers are right. At this point only time will tell. In our number 7 spot today we have the riot. In his book of quatrains and prophecies, Nostradamus wrote, quote, sooner or later you will see great changes made, horrors and terrible revenges. Definitely doesn't sound great, but what people are speculating this to mean is that there will be upheavals and civil rebellion seen in the new year. The prediction continues on with, quote, trumpets are shaking in great controversy and, quote, an agreement that has been broken. This is all leading people to believe that this could be the setup for some sort of revolution, although it's not quite clear where in the world this is speaking about or what issue it covers. All over the world there are people speaking up and out about the issues that they are facing, so it's tough to pinpoint one area it could be, although many people believe it could be about the uprising and protest scene in Iran, which many believe will only continue on and escalate. In our number 6 spot today, we have the warm waters. For this one, we have this fun little message that delivers a terrifying prediction for the future of our oceans. Nostradamus wrote, quote, like the sun, the head shall sear the shining sea, the black sea's living fish shall all but boil. Okay, yeah, definitely not a good look so far. It seems as though the seer is predicting that the fish in the sea are basically going to be heated to death, and recent studies might be suggesting the same thing. Some more recent research is starting to suggest that some of the most commonly consumed fish could face extinction due to climate change and the warming of our oceans. Of course, this is concerning considering the fact that this is one of humanity's major food sources, but if there was a major die-off of species, who knows what would happen to the species that could survive the warmer waters. I mean, a drastic change like that could completely destroy an ecosystem. It's definitely a terrifying prediction, and if research continues to back it up, things are starting to look a lot more grim. Coming in at our halfway mark in our number 5 spot, we have Gone Nuclear. This Nostradamus prediction is one that could certainly become a reality at any point, which is something that is pretty terrifying. In this day and age, the threat of a nuclear attack, while not an imminent threat, is always kinda there, hanging out in the back of people's minds. Like, it's not something most people think about every day, but it's just something that we know people possess the technology and the ability to do, you know? And like I've mentioned a bunch of times today, with the things that are currently going on, it seems as though it's more than just hanging out in the back of our minds. It's a scary reality, and that's why this Nostradamus prediction is just a little eerie, as he claims a nuclear bomb will explode in 2023, and if this wasn't bad enough, it has some harsh implications. He is said to have predicted that this explosion will lead to changes in not only the climate, but also the Earth's position. Not exactly certain what he means by the Earth's position, but what I do know is that that sounds terrible and terrifying. Like, the position of the Earth in the solar system, just in general, like, I've got so many questions. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Antichrist. Some people believe that Nostradamus predicted that in 2023, we will see the rise of the Antichrist, who will swiftly wage a war against those who don't believe in him. According to the New York Post, Nostradamus wrote, quote, "The Antichrist very soon annihilates the three. 27 years his war will last. The unbelievers are dead, captive, exiled, with blood, human bodies, water, and red hail covering the earth." Okay? Definitely not the 2023 I had in mind. At this point, it isn't clear who this could refer to, but of course, with any of these predictions, people will find a way to fit it to match any real world event currently ongoing. But the thing is, only time will truly tell. Some think that perhaps it could relate to a sort of politician or political situation, but others believe that this isn't referring to just one person, and instead is referring to many people that are already on the move. In our number 3 spot today, we have famine. Food instability isn't a new thing, and for those of us fortunate enough to have constant access to food, we have noticed the prices of food going up. And according to some experts, this might relate back to a prediction Nostradamus made for us. He wrote, quote, "No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred, his fellow man to eat in his despair." Basically, in this prediction, he's saying that the cost of food is going to rise so high that it's going to lead people to eat other people. Definitely the most extreme of situations and a terrifying thought, but the prediction doesn't have to be taken so literally either. While maybe what he said is exactly what he means, this also could just be a prediction that people won't be as kind or giving as they normally are. People might turn their backs on those in need more in order to have more for themselves. You know, more of a dog-eat-dog world sort of a situation. I truly hope that this is not the case, so fingers crossed for 2023, I guess. In our number 2 spot today, we have asteroids. This is one of those predictions that seemingly pops up every year and doesn't just come from long ago. It's basically the idea that an asteroid is going to impact Earth. It's a prediction that no one wants to come true, but for some reason, we also always guess that it might. It's really weird. Humans are very strange. Nostradamus' words were, quote, "Fire do I see that from the sky shall fall." I'm not exactly sure if he means like a small meteor shower kind of thing, or if he's talking mass extinction, it's the apocalypse kind of thing, but either way, it's a little unnerving. In 2021, we had a near miss with asteroid 2021 GW4, but it wasn't thought to be a huge deal either way, because it likely would have broken up in our atmosphere. Right now, it is said that the next near miss prediction is for around 2029, and that's from scientists. So at this point, I feel like we're probably safe, but who's to say for sure? People have also suggested that perhaps instead of asteroids, this prediction might be about missiles falling from the sky, which is honestly just as terrifying at this point. In our number 1 spot today, we have the climate disaster. According to Nostradamus, it is increasingly possible that the Earth might need to brace itself and get ready to go through another climate disaster in 2023. I know, not what any of us would like to hear. Mother Nature is terrifying, she is powerful, and we really are just sort of at the mercy of the weather and climate. According to experts, Nostradamus wrote, quote, "The dry land will dry up even more, and there will be great floods when you see the rainbow." It seems like perhaps we might be in for some periods of drought before the flood comes. Throughout the years, we've definitely seen some worsening weather in a multitude of ways. The Earth ebbs and flows and goes through changes, and we really are just along for the ride. All I know is that through this list, it's become quite clear that 2023 might be one wild ride.
Starting off this countdown, we have the husband in danger. Now, this one breaks my heart. It's a sign to always trust your gut instincts. So several years ago, this woman had a dream in which her husband was in danger. When she woke up, she knew something was wrong and that something was going to happen to him. So she begged him not to go to work in the morning. But her husband wasn't one to call in sick, so he went to work. An hour later, he was killed in an accident, which could have been prevented if he listened to his wife. In our 9th spot today, we have the black dog. Several years ago, when this next individual was 12, they woke up from a weird dream-like vision. In the dream, they saw a black dog collapsing in the distance. Now, they didn't think much of it. I mean, it's just a dream, right? So they went to school. That evening, he came home to his mom being very upset. Turns out that their granddad's dog Daisy had passed away. Daisy was a black dog and had collapsed while out for a walk. AKA, the dog he saw dying in his dream was Daisy. Coming in at number 8, we have Rose. This next individual had a very strange dream about a woman she used to work with called Rose. Now, they weren't close at all, they were just work acquaintances, and they only casually talked. And she hardly knew anything about her personal life, so it was quite weird for her to be suddenly dreaming about her. In the dream, she was talking to Rose, and Rose was crying her eyes out. She was saying that all she wanted in life was children, and how she couldn't have them. Now, this woman woke up being like, "Ha, that's a weird dream," and thought nothing of it. The next morning, she saw Rose crying at lunch. Turns out she had just discovered that she wasn't ever going to be able to have kids. Like, how on earth did this woman predict that that was going to happen to her? It totally blows my mind. In our 7th spot today, we have the cancer. Turns out that a number of breast cancer patients have had dreams about developing cancer before actually being diagnosed with it. In a study from 2015, 18 women with breast cancer were interviewed, and more than half of them had warning dreams, and many of these women had no family or personal history of the disease. In 94% of the cases, these dreams were a warning sign to these women that they had cancer. Let's take Susan DeGregorio for example. In 2013, she started having dreams where someone would be like, "It's your time to get cancer." After these became recurring, she fought to get an extensive test done on her breasts. In between appointments, she had a dream of a woman with short curly hair in a lab coat telling her that she had stage 3 breast cancer. Soon, that dream came true. When she got her diagnosis, it was given to her by a woman in a white lab coat with short curly hair. Her dreams were right. She did have breast cancer. In our 6th spot today, we have the landslide. In 1966, a terrible landslide from a coal mine slid into the village of Aberfan, UK. Sadly, a school was destroyed by the landslide, and 144 students and teachers inside lost their lives. Days before the incident, a young girl named Errol Mae Jones had a nightmare about this occurring. She said that in the dream, a black substance wiped out her school and killed her. A couple days later, she told her mom that she was not afraid to die because she was going to be with her school friends Peter and June. A couple days later, the landslide occurred. Errol sadly lost her life alongside Peter and June. Sadly, this girl predicted her end. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Robert Kennedy's assassination. In March of 1968, a woman named Kathleen Middleton had a dream that Kennedy was going to be assassinated. For months, she had reoccurring dreams of this happening. On June 4th, 1968, she called the Premonitions Bureau a number of times. She kept reporting her concerns about Kennedy. She knew that he was going to die soon. But obviously, they did nothing about it. A day later, he was shot and killed. Had they listened to her, maybe his fate would have been different. In our fourth spot today, we had the earthquake. According to Reddit user Kosher the Writer, they always get dreams about earthquakes before they even happen. They live in California, so they tend to have a lot of earthquakes. And every time they dream about one occurring, a few minutes later, they will actually occur. They think that they are sensitive to the energies around them, and maybe that's how they can detect upcoming earthquakes. Or they're psychic, who knows, but it's pretty weird. Someone should hire him as the weatherman or something. In our third spot today, we have the tornado. When this individual was only 13, him and his neighbor both had dreams of a tornado whipping through their town. As a result, the neighbor actually cut down the trees behind his house, because in his dream, the trees had fallen onto his house and destroyed it. The other guy had a dream that he was looking down on his town from space and he saw this massive tornado ripping through it. Not too long later, their dreams came true. He was outside when the wind began to turn. They rushed inside their home and a huge tornado came ripping through their town. Their street was badly destroyed as a result. This was said to be the second deadliest tornado outbreak in US history. This is another guy that should work for the news station. In our second spot today, we have the flight home. Due to this dad's intuition, he literally saved his life and his family's. So while on vacation, the night before his family's flight home, he had a dream that he was in a horrific plane crash. In the dream, the crash had something to do with the nose of the plane. The next morning, he convinced his wife to postpone the flight to a later time. Now, she was angry that they did this for a dream, but it's a good thing that they did. That morning, the plane that they were supposed to be on got in a terrible crash. Something was wrong with the nose of the plane and it caused them to crash upon takeoff. And in our number one spot today, we have the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. On February 1st of 2003, upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere, the Space Shuttle Columbia started to disintegrate. Sadly, all 7 crew members on board lost their lives. That day, Reddit user OESJMR was taking a nap when he had a dream he was standing in a field looking up at the sky. That's when he saw a fireball fall from the sky and pieces were breaking off. That's when he heard a man's voice say, "Do not touch any pieces of the spacecraft that may crash to Earth due to potential radiation contamination." That's when he woke up. The next morning he turned on the radio and heard the same man's voice from his dream. Instantly, he was scared. So he turned on the TV to find out what the man was talking about. And that's when he saw that the Space Shuttle Columbia had disintegrated during re-entry, just like what he saw in his dream.
Kicking off the list at number 10, VR. The Simpsons didn't predict VR at all. That was a concept that's been around for a long time. It's just now getting good. I mean, recently I got an Oculus, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I felt sick when I tried to use it. I almost threw up. You have to throw items at bad guys. I actually get anxious. My heart races. Olivia straight up cried when she tried it. It's a whole process. This is pretty powerful technology, like this is Black Mirror stuff. The Simpsons predicted that VR could possibly go wrong back in 2016. The episode titled Friends and Family has the town excited over this new tech that's finally arrived, and they're so into it that eventually people are walking in the streets wearing these goggles. They're getting hit by cars, they're losing touch with reality. We see disconnection from reality all the time. We saw it in WALL-E. With Facebook going the virtual route recently with the introduction of the metaverse, I believe that The Simpsons undermined the dangers for this one. You thought pop-ups and sketchy links were bad for children on Facebook? Well, soon we're gonna be walking into this actual virtual website. $3 billion worth of VR was sold during the pandemic. Connection during times like these, I mean, that's great and all, but how far can we really go? Number 9, Mars life. Let me ask you lovely people a question, truly. If you could go to Mars right now with like 3 of your friends, would you actually go? Keep in mind, it's really boring obviously, and unless you're an astronaut, botanist like Matt Damon, odds are you'd probably have a rough go once you did arrive. But in the future, sure, maybe it'll be a round trip, easy. Going to Mars might be as simple as going to the mall. The Simpsons showed a family visit to the big red planet come 2051, but honestly, I think we'll get there a lot sooner. SpaceX is already planning to send people out there. It's crazy, it's happening so fast. It's just a quick 9-month trip there, so make sure your phone's charged. And also you gotta watch out for the galactic cosmic rays. It's actually more beneficial for the team to travel during the peak times around 2030 and 2050 because trips to the planet will be shorter, for one, which is great, and they'll also coincide with periods of solar maximum. So while this one may not come true in 2022, let me tell you, it's definitely around the corner. Number 8, robots. We're at a point now where robots can straight up do parkour. Boston Dynamics is trending every other week. Half the time I can't even tell if their videos are real or if they're CGI. The robots are too impressive. Also, the fact that I'm saying the robots, like where are we right now? What's going on? The Simpsons have touched on robots taking over. That was an idea that's been done a few times. In 2012, they predicted that a great amount of jobs would be lost to the robots. But back in 1994, the Simpsons episode titled Itchy and Scratchy Land showed a theme park full of robots that go crazy and attack civilians. Also, we have Sophia the robot now. She's actually been on talk shows. It's like a real person. She has a citizenship. She's the first robot to receive citizenship from a country. Saudi Arabian citizen. She's a robot. This is real life. She was also on the CNBC saying that she wanted to destroy humans at one point. So that's neat. This could slowly be underway. I mean, I hope not. iRobot is literally one of my biggest fears. The movie predicted self-driving cars. That's all I'm saying.
How can I be of service, Detective Spooner?
Number 7, Dome Sweet Dome. For this one, we're looking at the Simpsons movie, which definitely still holds up. If you haven't seen it, check it out after this video. That's a fun time. But with the pandemic seeming to never end, could we possibly see our own towns domed up? This idea came long before the Simpsons movie. Back in the 70s, there were talks about putting a dome over Manhattan, this 3-kilometer dome over Midtown that regulates weather and pollution. It sounds fun, but imagine if that actually had been built. Imagine what we have been doing with it now during the initial COVID outbreak. It would have been madness. People would have been storming it like a castle. And then in 2010, there was a city planned that was supposed to be built in 2020. It was called Eco City. It was supposed to be built in the Mir mine in Siberia. It was announced in 2014 officially. This climate-controlled dome city, 4.5 square kilometers, but since 2016, the project lost the dome. What do you guys think? Should we use domes over cities, lose the umbrella, and just live in a big glass ball forever? Honestly, I would do it. I'm tired of walking in puddles. Number 6, the World Cup. An episode from 1997 called The Cartridge Family shows Mexico and Portugal going head-to-head in football. Like soccer football, not like football, like a football thing. You got it. Springfield residents are told to go see this match to determine which nation is the greatest on earth, Mexico or Portugal. So in 2018, when the World Cup rolled around, pun intended, fans were excited that this was actually coming true. But at the same time, they had to laugh, determining that Ronaldo must have missed that penalty intentionally so that the prediction would come true. Although I think that was just a mistake. But recently, it's been announced that Qatar will host the tournament in November, December 2022, rather than the usual June, July dates. Another World Cup, another chance for the Simpsons to add another prediction to their impressive list. Number 5, flying cars. We've been talking about flying cars for so long, I wouldn't even call this a Simpsons prediction anymore, but they've nailed it before, so who knows. 2022 could be the year we say goodbye to tires forever. In 2005, Professor Fink created this machine to let Bart and Lisa see the future. The future at that point was 2013, which is long since passed, but Marge had left Homer because he spent all their savings on an underwater house. But also in this episode, we see hover cars. Come 2017, the concept of a futuristic hover car was revealed. It's called Float, the Renault car of the future. So come 2022, we might not see these exactly, but we might get an even cooler version. We might get this 6-person hover car. That's like something that Fantastic Four rolls around with. Are you kidding me? It's called the cyclocar. I'm absolutely going to get my license just for this. Number 4, music control. You ever listen to an album and it's so good that it moves you? Sometimes it'll literally move you, right? You have to go and bop around in the kitchen for a bit, get all those beats out. But what if music moved you in like a Pied Piper kind of way? What if next time you heard the cha-cha slide at a wedding, you had to do the cha-cha slide? In 2001, an episode called New Kids on the Bleak showed Bart in a band that was secretly a mind control device for the Navy. Subliminal messaging through music. Love it. One of their most popular tracks was called Drop Da Bomb, so obviously it was a bit more obvious where they're going. But this isn't a new idea either. Many people have thought that hip-hop brainwashes people. Even The Game, like the artist The Game, believes that the internet is brainwashing people into enjoying whack music, as he says. That's a quote. It's a real-life quote from a real artist. What do we think? Are we slowly being brainwashed through music? I mean, every time I open TikTok, I end up hating another classic that I loved once, so maybe it's just we're seeing it too much? Also, I love how hip-hop is like the center of attention for brainwashing the youth. No, it's literally like, yeah, I got 4 jobs, I make bank, I don't sleep, I work my ass off. Meanwhile, other genres are like, I think he's cheating on me, you should go through his phone. Number 3, VR food. The Simpsons had their 600th episode centered around VR. As I mentioned earlier, it's a pretty big deal. It's a technology that's changing lives, really. And those midnight snacks might get a whole lot better in the future, apparently. I swear to God, one time when I was dozing off watching TV, I tried to eat food that wasn't there. I tried to half asleep and eat food. It was the dumbest thing I've ever done, but could you imagine if a pizza pocket just magically appeared in your hand in the middle of the night? Well, The Simpsons predict that this virtual reality food might just be a thing. Scientists at Cornell University found out that cheese tastes better when you eat it in a certain pleasant VR setting. So if you see me eating shredded cheese at 2 a.m. naked with goggles on in my room, leave me alone, okay? Don't judge me. I'm in Paris. I'm dining out. I'm having a culinary experience. Shut the door on your way out of Paris. Get out of my room. Number 2, digital Big Ben. You ever look at a clock with like, hands and all that jazz, and it takes you a while to actually read it? You're like doing addition. You're like, hey, is that a 2 or a 3? Where's that hand? Why is there 4 hands? Some timepieces need to be digital, right? Middle of the night, you can't see time. You're looking over to see how long you've been asleep for. You can't look at hands and all that jazz. Also, when you go to a wedding, you're not wearing a digital wristwatch, right? You know what I mean? You're not a spy kid. You're not gonna be timing people doing laps. You're trying to look good. You're trying to keep it classy. The Big Ben, I hope, never goes digital, but never say never. In an episode from 1995, the future shows Lisa traveling to England to meet her future husband's parents, and the Big Ben is digital at this point. Now, today, construction is still being done on the Big Ben, and we won't hear its chimes until next summer, but can you imagine when they finally reveal it? Instead of a chime, you hear a beep. Imagine every hour you get a notification instead of hearing those lovely bells. I'd lose my mind. And finally, number 1, hologram mail. Coming from season 11, episode 17, Bart to the Future, we get another tease at some future tech. A mailman gives Bart a letter, but it packs quite the punch. Bart opens it up and the letter is, well, it's 4D. It's like a hologram person. It's almost like Star Wars. Honestly, since I saw Star Wars when I was a little tot, I always wanted that technology in my life. That would be amazing. VR food sounds delicious, but hologram mail, that would save lives. I would send so many letters to my friends and family. I'd wear a cloak in all of them too, and I'd be so ominous. And I would never click stop. I would just stand there and walk out of frame. You know what I mean? That's how all the villains do it. If we get virtual mail, that would lead us to virtual packages. No more shipping fees? Oh, can you imagine? But also, no more eagerly awaiting your package that's been delayed for 2 weeks. We can actually use this. This is great. This is the future we've been waiting for.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Ruin. Of course, in recent years, the royal family has seen a change that really many didn't expect. When Harry and Meghan chose to renounce their royalty status, speculation began that this could be the beginning of the end for the monarchy. People only fueled their fire with this quatrain from Nostradamus, which reads, "At the end of the war, the great powers change. Near the coast are born 3 beautiful children. They will ruin the town when they come of age. They will change the kingdom and they will not see it grow anymore." Now, Harry is only one of 2 children, so I'm not sure if the quatrain was talking about him and his sibling, or if it has more to do with some other royal family members, but either way, there are some people who take Nostradamus' words very seriously, so maybe there really is something there. In our number 9 spot today, we have Revolution. So this is a quatrain that is said to have predicted basically the French Revolution. The phrase reads, "From the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands. While princes and lords are held captive in prisons, these will in the future by headless idiots be received as divine prayers." Apparently, starting with the storming of Bastille in 1789, this quatrain predicted the overthrowing of the monarchy and the establishment of a new republic. The Third Estate took control of Paris and had their demands heard, but of course, especially in those times, things turned bloody. Both nobles and common people were being called traitors to the revolution, and they met their fate at the guillotine. Remember that whole headless part in the quatrain? In our number 8 spot today, we have King Henry II. This is one quatrain that people believe was Nostradamus predicting the death of King Henry II, who was actually a personal acquaintance of the prophet himself. While at one point Nostradamus was seen addressing King Henry II as the most invincible Henry, King of France, unfortunately Henry proved to be quite vincible when he met his gruesome death at age 40. In the summer of 1559, a terrible jousting accident gone wrong left the king passing away shortly after from sepsis. This is a terrible story, but I told it because many think that Nostradamus actually predicted it. The jousting accident saw the king having splinters driven into his eye and skull by one of his young soldiers, and the Nostradamus quatrain reads, "The young lion will overcome the older one." It says that he will pierce his eyes through a golden cage, and that 2 wounds will ensure a cruel death. So, I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying it's a little unbelievable. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Great Fire. So for this Nostradamus prophecy, let's start out with the quatrain in question. It reads, "The blood of the just will commit a fault at London, burnt through lightning of 23's the 6. The ancient lady will fall from her high place, several of the same sect will be killed." There are many people who believe that this quatrain was actually one that predicted the Great Fire of London that occurred in 1666. So basically people think this so much in part because of the fact that if you take the line 23's the 6 and times 20 by 3 and then add 6, you get 66. It obviously mentions London, and this fire was absolutely disastrous. I know this isn't necessarily a direct reference to the royal family, but this fire really did affect them. Also, it is said by many that the reference to the lady in this quatrain, as well as other quatrains, the lady is actually a term for the kingdom. This means that Nostradamus was predicting that the kingdom was going to fall as a result of the Great Fire. In our number 6 spot today we have Charles I. It is said that Nostradamus was able to predict the death of Charles I, and he did this through a quatrain with very specific circumstances. It reads, "Gainst Antwerp, Gant shall Brussels bring with it, the London Senate put to death their king, the salt and wine shall then against him be, for them to have the realm in Anaroli." So the death of Charles is said to be the first time there was a death of a king in England that was because of a ruling from the Court of Justice and from Parliament. This is also after a time where there was a civil war in the Netherlands, which ended in a peace treaty, but that's what people are saying that the beginning is a reference to. It is also said that the salt and wine in the latter half is a reference to France. In our number 5 spot today we have A Bad Leader. This is a quatrain that I'm not entirely sure who it's referencing, or perhaps it is more of a comment on a style of ruling in general rather than one particular ruler, but either way it is a less than ideal prediction for the monarchy. It reads, "In England king shall under butcher truckle, a mean man force the realm to him to buckle. Faithless and lawless he shall bleed the land, I sigh to think his time's so near at hand." It appears as though Nostradamus is predicting that soon after the death of a king, there will be someone taking over who is less than ideal. Whoever this ruler is, they are said to be overbearing and totalitarian-like. They don't care about the earth or the land, and they go against the rules that were already set out, and not even Nostradamus wants to deal with this guy. At the end, it seems like he's almost begrudgingly passing along this news. In our number 4 spot today we have the plague. One of the things Nostradamus was known for was treating people who were sick with the plague. Because of the times and the lack of medical knowledge, he actually had some tricks that were quite smart and that would provide some relief to a sick person even now. Of course, not to the level that modern medicine can, but we are talking about some really solid home remedies. This is all to say it's no surprise that the plague made it into some of his predictions. He wrote, "The city port's great plague shall not be ended until the death of just blood be avenged, gateless condemned for gain upon pretense to the great lady he had done violence." People have taken this quatrain to mean that Nostradamus is predicting that the plague will continue to be around until the great lady, meaning the kingdom, is avenged. In our number 3 spot today we have King James' downfall. This is said to be a quatrain that predicted the downfall and exile and succession of King James. The quatrain reads, 30 of London's gainst their king devise, on him about the bridge of enterprise. His guards for his death do with displeasure mourn, elected king a Dutchman fair-haired born." So basically, King James was removed from the throne because at the time people were upset at him, which is what the beginning refers to. The bridge mentioned in the quatrain is said to be a reference to him being exiled and sent away, but of course he would later come back to try and regain the throne. In the end, however, his successor would go on to be William III, who had a co-monarchy with Mary II. This is said to be mentioned in the last line. Although William was not fair-haired, he was Dutch-born. In our number 2 spot today we have Mary II. This is a quatrain that definitely ties into the last, and it is said to show the prediction that Mary II would come into power with her husband. The quatrain reads, "The eldest sister of the British throne, 15 years older than her mother's son, on promised terms fully unto agreed, unto the balanced kingdom shall succeed." Mary was the eldest daughter of England. It is said that she was born 15 years before a brother, but at the end of the day all of her mother's children other than Mary and her sister passed away, so that is a little difficult to confirm. She succeeded as a sovereign queen. I mean, it really all does make sense that this quatrain would be referencing this co-monarchy. In our number 1 spot today we have The End. To tie this whole thing together, we have a grim prediction that is said to come from Nostradamus in relation to the queen. It is said that Nostradamus said that the queen would be overwhelmed with old family problems. And it is also said that Nostradamus predicted that the monarchy will end with her. This could potentially be true based on recent events, like I mentioned previously with Harry and Meghan renouncing their royalty, and when we look at who's next in the succession line, it doesn't exactly give us all high hopes for the future of the monarchy that we would like to see. see. Perhaps if Prince William were to take over, England may move to a republic for the second time in its history, but that truly didn't work out so well for everyone involved. At this point, I am not the seer that Nostradamus was, and he is long gone, so it's looking like only time will tell what's up next.
And the number 10 spot is an alien invasion. So, starting us off about as far into conspiracy land as I possibly can, because why not? According to the famous blind seer Baba Vanga, it's not just typical human wars that we should be worried about this year, but the invasion of an evil alien species as well. Now, there are many different conspiracy theories surrounding the existence of aliens to begin with. Among believers, some think they are harmless, while others think they are dangerous, and there's even a third sort of faction that suggests there is obviously more than one race of aliens, so both dangerous and peaceful could exist in our universe. Now, putting aside the theories surrounding if aliens are dangerous or not, according to Baba Vanga, this year we will be invaded by a race of bloodthirsty monsters that will tragically result in the end of all humankind. If that's all true, it would mean that 2023 would be the last year we all have, as again, she predicts aliens will wipe out the human race and take over the planet Earth. I mean, there is very little we can use to verify the validity of this statement, but you can sure hope I am praying it is not true, because, well, I just don't want to die. Now, all that being said, Baba Vanga did also predict that the world won't end until like 5079, so there might be a bit of breathing room on this one. However, if this does all end up to be true, would the government know about their impending arrival and be preparing for such a disaster? I mean, I just have so many questions. Let's just hope this one misses the mark and does not come true. Next up at number 9, a star explosion. Although the exact date is not specified, according to the Mystic Vanga, one unsuspecting day in 2023, people will be going about their usual daily business when all of a sudden, without any warning, the sky will become frighteningly illuminated by a blinding flash of light. But it won't be lightning or some power outage. Instead, she predicts that a massive star will explode, sending down a terrifying shower of sparks and debris across the globe. To make it even worse, Baba Vanga foresees that the explosion will be so bright that it will be seen from every corner of the globe, lighting up the night sky for an insane 5 years. But apparently the phenomenon is going to be so alarming that astronomers and scientists will rush to study it, only to find that it is unlike any other solar explosion to date. And the star's blast will be so powerful that it will cause the very fabric of time and space to ripple and bend. So if Baba Vanga is correct, then the entire concept of time and space could cease to exist as we know it from now until 2028. I sure as hell hope not. Coming in at number 8. No more money. Sometimes when I read these predictions, I wonder just how many bad things could possibly have been foreseen to exist in one calendar year. And apparently on top of an alien invasion and the end of time and space as we know it, Vanga also predicts that in 2023 the concept of money as we now use and understand it will come to a complete and utter halt. Now, I know it's hard to imagine how our world would function without currency, as literally everything revolves around it. But if you think about it a little less literally, we are already seeing the beginnings of this. Cash is virtually on its way out, and everyone pays for everything with their cards, their phone, or even their watch. Plus, with the addition of cryptocurrencies, who knows how long the idea of currency as we currently understand and use it will remain. However, just like most things, this could go in two vastly separate directions. On one hand, she could mean something along the lines of what I just said earlier, and no more money means a shift in how we use currency. But it could also mean that there's some kind of economical collapse, and so the concept of currency at all becomes obsolete, and that would be insane. Coming in at number 7, a bird epidemic. Among the other catastrophic predictions Vanga believes will come true between now and the end of the year is a deadly bird virus that could potentially be so widespread that nearly all species will be at risk of extinction. The virus, transmitted through the air and contaminated water sources, will strike quickly and with devastating effects. Within weeks, entire flocks will be wiped out, and the once common sight of birds soaring through the sky will become so rare that they will almost feel like an urban legend. As the virus spreads, scientists will scramble to find a cure, but despite their efforts, the virus will prove to be unstoppable and the birds as we know them will cease to exist. Now, this would be devastating for many reasons because, well, our planet needs all the species it has to work properly, and the loss of every single bird on the planet all at once would cause major issues for not only the population of creatures the bird eats, but it would likely also cause an overnight collapse of the farming industry. I mean, just think how much money people make off of chickens and turkeys alone. So for obvious reasons, let's hope this one missed the mark. Next up at number 6, bioweapons. Now, if this list of hypothetical catastrophic 2023 events hasn't scared you much just yet, then this one just might. According to Vanga, in 2023, there will be a big country that will carry out bioweapon studies on humans, which would have horrifying consequences. For those who don't know, bioweapons are essentially bacteria or diseases that are used in an effort to harm and kill people in an act of war. Now, the good news is that many large countries like Canada, US, and the UK have a complete ban on these type of experiments, but there are other countries around the world that could still be the culprit. But who knows, if other 2023 predictions are true, countries could pull out of the treaty and begin conducting experiments to try and make it out alive. The consequences of the release of bioweapons could be detrimental and has the potential to wipe out the whole planet if we aren't careful. Coming in at number 5, a nuclear explosion. Among her many other foresights for 2023, Vanga also warned that sometime this year a nuclear power plant will explode, causing irreparable damage. Now, to be fair, this has happened before, and so the idea of it happening again, while incredibly frightening, doesn't seem like her most outlandish prediction. Plus, there are certain countries who are at war with others that possess the power to cause such a disaster. Now, what's especially spooky about Vanga is that she has a wild success rate, 85% in fact, according to scientists that have studied her predictions. So it has many wondering if this prediction will fall into that 85% success rate along with Chernobyl and her own death date, or if it will be among the 15% that she has missed. For the sake of our planet, I'm crossing my fingers that this is not something we will be faced with for the last half of this year. Coming in at number 4, a solar tsunami. As if the predictions for 2023 haven't been through enough already, there is a dark end of world prediction that there will be a solar storm on a scale never seen before. Now, solar storms happen when a burst of energy is released from the sun, and this sends electrical charges and radiation hurling towards the Earth. While that does sound a bit freaky, it actually happens all the time, like the Northern Lights, for example. But what Vanga was predicting is more along the lines of complete and utter worldwide blackout followed by technological failures and overall global panic. Quite literally, she is describing a dark age. If her prediction is true, it would essentially cause complete societal collapse, and truthfully, who knows what happens from there. Coming in at number 3, a change in orbit. Next up on the dark predictions Baba Vanga has in store for the year of 2023 is that apparently our Earth will change its orbit. Now, the details of how this would even happen were not given, but if it turns out to be true, we are in for some serious issues. For starters, any shift in the Earth's orbit could bring devastating damages to sea level and our climate, both of which aren't particularly thriving to begin with at the moment, and even worse, if the Earth moved any closer to the sun, the increased radiation and temperatures would cause a complete breakdown. Essentially, any changes to the Earth's orbit would send us into complete and full mayhem and would very much be the end of the world, which, you know, is frankly not how I would like to spend the rest of my year. Coming in at number 2, cyborgs. Along with the death of all birds, a nuclear explosion, a solar tsunami, and even an alien invasion, this year we will also see a revolutionary new technology being developed that will promise to change how humans live forever. Baba Vanga says this cyborg system, if you will, is going to be a groundbreaking development that allows people to replace their natural bodies and organs with artificial ones, making them part human and part machine. Now, not all of this is incredibly far off to believe. I mean, we already make prosthetic limbs for people and so on, but I think it depends on what things we start replacing and how much of the body becomes a robot that determines the sort of post-apocalyptic feel of it. So like with many things, in the right hands, this could be a good advancement to medicine, but in the wrong hands, it could very much look like a dystopian wasteland ruled by robot overlords. And last up in our #1 spot today is lab births. Almost like some weird cousin to The Handmaid's Tale, Vanga's most terrifying prediction for 2023 is a dystopian world where we will see the end of natural human births. Specifically, that birth, the way we have been doing it since the beginning of time, will be banned. She claims to foresee that the government will make it the law that all life must be created in a lab, and that medical experts would essentially decide how many people are born a year, and that parents would be able to customize their traits and appearances even. Now, this prediction doesn't come totally out of left field, as we do have the capabilities to involve science in the process to a much higher degree than ever before. A while back, an article was circulating about a real-life human boy named Adam, who was created in a lab from stem cells and grown in an artificial gestational sac for 36 weeks, and it caused quite the uproar. Now, this article was proved to be totally fake, but the entire idea of it was believable at the time and certainly made many people very uncomfortable. Could it be something that comes true in the future? I mean, maybe? I just hope if medicine does advance in that way, it does not also outlaw non-lab created humans.
Starting off this countdown, we have Paula Brown. In 1996, a hairdresser named Paula Brown disappeared in Sydney, Australia. Police investigations were conducted but turned out unsuccessful. That's when Paula's fiance reached out to the psychic Philip Durant. Philip was given a piece of Paula's hair and used this to help connect to her. As a result, he was able to point police in the direction of her body. 1 week later, her body was found close to the location that Philip had said. In our 9th spot, we have Danny Shea. Rhonda Shea reached out to a psychic named Troy Griffin after her brother-in-law Danny Shea went missing in December of 2014. Troy Griffin developed his psychic abilities at the age of 12. It started when he predicted that his friend would get into a car accident. A couple days later, this happened. He now braces his abilities and uses them to aid police in cold cases. In this case, Troy felt that Danny was a few miles from home. He said that he saw him surrounded by water. A couple of days later, Danny was discovered. His vehicle had gone off the side of the road in Colorado and ended up in the creek where he drowned. Coming in at number 8, we have Melanie Irby. On December 15th, 1980, Melanie Irby was kidnapped by 2 men while she was on her way to work. In 1981, a clairvoyant named Etta Smith began to have visions about Melanie after listening to a story about her disappearance. One of the visions that she received was her location. She saw a winding road that led to a canyon. She saw hills, a bush, and then something white. She ended up telling the police about this, but fearing that the police would take too long, she decided to look for the body herself. She ended up traveling to Lopez Canyon, and the more she wandered the trail, the more she was overcome with visions and feelings of trauma. That's when she found one of Melanie's white nursing shoes in a bush. She later found Melanie's body in that area, and Etta was actually arrested for Melanie's murder. The police didn't believe the whole psychic business, but later 2 17-year-old boys were arrested for the murder and Etta was released. In our 7th spot, we have Laura Hale Costner. On January 7, 2016, Laura Hale Costner, a 14-year-old mother of 2, went missing in Tennessee. After being missing for 3 weeks, her sister-in-law reached out through Facebook to the psychic Troy Griffin. Troy began by looking at Google Maps of the area in which Laura was said to have disappeared. He claims that when doing this, he saw the exact road which she disappeared on. He also felt that there was drug use by the victim. Troy continued to investigate by looking through Laura's Facebook friends. From there, he found 3 people that he felt were involved in this disappearance, 2 men and 1 female. But he said that his main suspect was a 19-year-old boy named McKinley Lane Cody. Laura's sister-in-law ended up forwarding Troy's findings to the police. And guess what? A few hours later, McKinley was arrested for robbing Laura of her prescription pain medication and murdered her by hitting her at the back of the head. That's freaky. Like, he knew who the killer was and he knew that it had to do with Laura's drugs. And he solved this case entirely through Facebook. Moving on, in our 6th spot, we have Nell Cropsey. In 1901 in North Carolina, 19-year-old Nell Cropsey disappeared. Psychic Snell Newman, which is super weird because her name is Nell and his name is Snell, Anyway, psychic Snell Newman heard about Nell's disappearance and offered to help locate her. Newman had visions of Nell's boyfriend sedating her with chloroform and then drowning her in a well. However, after inspecting the well, her body wasn't found. That was until December 27th, when Nell's body was found in a river that was connected to that same well. Turns out that Nell's boyfriend indeed had killed her and originally dumped her body in that well. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Dalton Kropp. Dalton Kropp from Illinois was just 15 years old when he started getting visions. He could accurately predict things like when babies would be born, and he's also said to be an empath. Well, in July of 2000, Dalton, his dad, and a friend were out on a fishing trip. Dalton jumped into the lake for a swim and then was filled with visions. He immediately felt nervous. He told his dad that he saw a blue truck going into the lake with a person inside. He said that the boy's body was in a truck that was directly underneath them. He knew the exact position of the truck and the boy. Well, 2 weeks later, police found the body of a boy in a truck in the exact same spot Dalton said. The 19-year-old boy was missing for 5 years, and his disappearance remained a mystery up until then. Making our way down the list at number 4, we have Maria Scott. In 2003, a woman named Maria Scott went missing. Months later, she was found murdered. 4 years after her murder, psychic Debbie Malone was brought onto the case to help catch the murderer. Police believe that the perpetrator was Mark Brown, who knew Mary from a rehab center. Police wanted Debbie's help to see if they were right about Mark. They gave Debbie Maria's bangle and took her to the rehab center. From there, she pointed to the exact spot where Maria's blood was found. She also claims that she saw the attacker walk through her, making her believe that he was now dead. Well, turns out that Mark committed suicide. She then was able to lead police to a cabin where Maria was killed. And she discovered the murder weapon, which was stuck in a drain pipe. This helped solve the case and confirm that Mark Brown was the man behind it. Moving on to number 3, we have Ashley Howley. In 2004, a 20-year-old woman by the name of Ashley Howley disappeared from her town in Columbus, Ohio. The night she went missing, she called the police saying that there was a break-in at her home. However, when police arrived, she was already missing. Now, this case went cold for several years. That was until a psychic named Christy Robinette was visited by Ashley's spirit. Christy claims that Ashley told her that she was murdered by her boyfriend and that she needed her help. She claims that she kept getting images of light-colored pines, and the spot that her body was found would be marked with a stick. After going on a search with one of Ashley's relatives, a park ranger told them of an area that had light-colored pines. When they got to the area, she knew that Ashley was buried there. However, they were unable to dig because it was on private property. 2 years later, Ashley's body was found in the exact location the psychic told the police, and it indeed was marked with a stick. On top of that, Ashley's boyfriend was the person behind the attack and was arrested. In our second spot, we have Mary Cousette. In 1983, a woman named Mary Cousette went missing. Thanks to the help of psychic Greta Alexander, her body was found and the killer was apprehended. Greta Alexander claims that she received her psychic abilities after she was struck by a lightning bolt. She was in her home when the lightning bolt struck her house. It caused all the windows to shatter and even set her bed on fire. After that incident, she started receiving visions. Greta ended up providing the police force with 22 details about Mary and her case. She said that her body was near a riverbank and close to a bridge. She also mentioned that her body was not attached to her head and that she was missing a foot or leg. Well, these clues ended up leading detectives to Mary's body. Her skull was found 10 feet from the body, which was missing the left foot. Greta also mentioned that the body would be found by a man with a bad hand and his name started with the letter S. Well, the body was found by Steve True, a policeman who injured his hand a while back. And in our number 1 spot, we have Penny Sarah. Penny Sarah's death remained a mystery for 2 years until they enlisted the help of a psychic named Mary Pasquarella Downey. Penny was found stabbed to death in a parking garage in New Haven. Mary held onto Penny's coat and was able to have a conversation with her. Penny apparently told Mary that the man behind her death was someone who was light and clean-shaven. Mary also got visions involving the color blue, the smell of garage oil, and water. She also saw a uniform with a name tag on it with the letter E, and greasy hands being wiped on a dirty cloth. Well, eventually a man named Edward R. Grant was arrested with the murder. He was an auto mechanic who lived in Waterbury. Mary did mention something about water, and he happened to live in Waterbury. And remember, she said that his uniform had a tag with the letter E on it. Well, his name was Edward. That starts with the letter E. She also said that it would take a long time to catch the man behind this, but that blood would tell. Well, Edward was linked to Penny's murder by DNA blood testing. Just like Mary said, blood would tell. Like, that is so freaky. She got so many details correct.